Did you literally fly in to walk into that meeting?
No, I flew in to walk into the other meeting.
Oh.
Please take your seats, everyone. Assembly members, please come up to the stage and take your seats. Public, please take a seat as well.
And I thought, what time zone is he in?
I never know.
Hi, Scott. How are you? We're going to stop doing this.
All right, everyone, we're about to get started. For the public, we will have public comment cards near the entrance. They are yellow cards. Please fill those out and return them back to the table. We will get those to the chairman, and he will be calling you up for public comment. Once again, if you want to speak or provide public comment, there are yellow public comment cards at the back table near the entrance. It is a yellow card. Please fill it out and return it back, and we will get those to the chairman. Thank you.
Congressman? Hi, John Mayer. How are you? Good to see you. I guess I should. I actually met you in Jurassic Park because when I was in the legislature, probably.
All right, assembly members, if you could make your way up to the stage.
Yeah, I didn't hear you well back there. I was surprised. You are. Oh, we didn't talk about that. What are you talking about? No, the Newsom thought that. All right, we're going to do a mic check, and I just want to see if the folks in the back can hear us okay. So maybe if you can hear us okay in the back of the auditorium, if you could put up a hand or two hands. Okay, we see a couple hands up. Can everybody hear us okay? The folks in the front can hear us okay? So? Okay, well, we are going to gavel this meeting to order in the next 2 minutes. If we could ask everybody in the back to take their seats so that we can gavel this meeting to order. Okay. Good evening, everyone. I want to thank you for being here, and for those of you who are watching on our live stream webcast. We've heard that the 5 freeway was closed, so we know that people are trickling in slowly. But we promised everybody we would start on time and value their time tonight, so that's what we're going to do. My name is Mike Gatto, and I'm the chairman of the California State Assembly's Utilities and Commerce Committee. I took over the gavel of this committee in December, and I started an inquiry into this gas leak and scheduled this hearing within 1 hour of being named chair. And I'm pleased that other state officials have now taken this committee's lead and are giving this horrible situation the attention it deserves. I'm going to take a moment and go over the ground rules and things like that, what you're going to see tonight and what you're not going to see. You'll notice that we do not have a vast table of bureaucrats here tonight to talk at you, and that is intentional. This is a hearing. We convened this meeting to hear from the public. Our mission is to get some answers from those responsible for the leak and for those responsible for regulating them. So what I've done is I've asked for just 1 to 2 representatives of the relevant executive agencies to summarize what they know and to be available to answer questions. Keep in mind, these officials, all of us, all of the people here, elected officials or executive branch officials, we are here to serve you. Your taxpayers, your tax dollars pay for our budgets. And with respect to the utility, it is granted monopoly rights, which puts it under similar, very strict duties to you, the public, its ratepayers. If anyone here does not give you satisfactory answers, we as your representatives are here to get them for you. We are going to demand solutions and accurate information tonight, and if we don't get it tonight, we're going to stay on it until we get those solutions and that information for you. That is our job. In a few moments, some of the other officials and the agencies and the gas company are going to make some short presentations. I've asked them to keep their comments short because we are here to answer your questions. I've also asked everyone here to focus on presenting you new information because your time is valuable and because I know that so many of you have scrupulously kept up to date on this leak. Now, some of the questions that I want answered as chairman include, when did this leak really start? And why was it allowed to go on so long before it was disclosed to OES and the public? How many complaints were received before the official date that the leak was announced? And what's the state of record keeping that has logged those complaints? I want to know what's the state of the infrastructure beneath our feet. We're all familiar with our roads and how bad they are. What's the state of the infrastructure beneath our feet? Could this happen again here? Could this happen again in other communities? For many of us, our homes are our biggest investments. And beyond their mere investment value, our homes have profound significance for our families. What has this done to property values? And what will the company do? And what can the government do to address the property values question, which in my humble opinion is a very big one? I've also asked our assessor's office to have representatives here, and we have 2 of them. We have Scott Svonkin and George Welch, and they're here to answer your questions if you want to apply for a reassessment. Next, I'm going to read briefly from some testimony that SoCal Gas filed with the CPUC in 2014, and this was in an application to raise our gas rates. The testimony said, and I quote, "While we have historically managed risk at our storage facilities by relying on more traditional monitoring activities, we believe it is critical that we adopt a more proactive and in-depth approach. In 2008 at Aliso Canyon, it was discovered, and this next phrase is a summary, that a well at Porter Ranch had a bad pressure reading." And now I'm quoting again. "In most cases, situations like this are indicative of production casing leaks from either internal or external corrosion, where gas can migrate to the surface in a matter of hours. Corrosion has also been observed at other wells in this field." And this is from 2014 testimony given before the CPUC. Now, given this testimony, which is pretty close to a smoking gun, I will expect the regulator and the company to answer how this could have happened. Another question that I have, we've heard a lot about safety valves. We don't think that this leak would have been necessarily stopped by a safety valve, but would it have been improved? Would any part of this leak, would anything with this situation have possibly been better with something as simple as this being installed? Now, I have a lot of other questions. For example, whether emergency responders are adequately trained for catastrophe here in this community, whether the company is in good communications with them. I'd like to know how fracking might have contributed to this leak. I want to know why Porter Ranch residents are still receiving gas bills. I want to know what legislation you think this committee should pursue. I want to know the impacts of shutting down this well, or all these wells, on utility bills and generation in the area. But I'm going to stick to my own rules, and which is of keeping our introductory speeches short, and I'm going to ask those questions later. And right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce one of my colleagues in the legislature, and that is somebody who's no stranger to all of you, and that is Mr. Scott Wilk. Now, Mr. Scott Wilk does not sit on this committee, but he cares so much about this leak and the community here because he represents it, that he has agreed to be here, and he's here with us on the dais, and he's going to be our vice chair of the meeting tonight. So this is Mr. Scott Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I want to thank you as chairman of this committee for holding this special committee hearing on the Aliso Canyon gas leak. And again, I want to welcome you all to the 38th Assembly District. I believe this hearing is necessary as many of my constituents do not believe that they have received timely or accurate information. Last Friday night, over 1,100 Porter Ranch residents attended a hearing at Shepherd of the Hills Church to hear presentations and ask questions of a Brown administration cabinet heads regarding the gas leak. Underwhelming was the anecdotal response my constituents shared with me after that forum. They walked away with their best thoughts, believing that Southern California Gas Company and state regulators are incompetent, and worse, they believe that SoCal Gas and regulators are in cahoots to conceal the cause of the leak, as well as the possible short-term and long-term health risks. So again, I appreciate Chairman Gatto for calling this committee hearing so we can begin to drill down on this issue of the gas leak and its ramifications for our community. I want to thank everybody in advance who's going to be testifying, as well as great local leaders who are here, such as LA City Councilman Mitch Englander, and I'm looking forward to hearing from my constituents tonight with their questions. Thank you.
So I'm going to briefly introduce our panel here tonight. To my left is Assemblymember Autumn Burke, who's a longtime member of the Utilities and Commerce Committee. And to her left is Assemblyman Matt DeBobney, who also does not sit on this committee, but represents the San Fernando Valley and cares so much about this issue that he is here as well. Now, what we've done is we have asked members that we thought would be the most effective regulators and members of the federal government, federal representatives, to be here tonight to give you some information. Again, we've asked them to focus on new information and to answer questions that might have come up already. I think they've got a pretty good handle on what those questions are. And we're going to go right into their brief presentations, and then we're going to open it up for questions and answers from the audience. So first speaking is somebody, of course, who is no stranger to this community, because he's the only elected official who lives in this community, right here in Porter Ranch. And of course, that is Congressman Brad Sherman. Congressman.
Testing. Thank you for holding these hearings. It's an honor to be in front of two of my former district chiefs of staff, yourself, Mr. Chairman, and Matt DeBobney. I want to thank Granada Hills Charter High School for hosting this. And although he's not on this panel, I want to thank Councilman Mitch Englander for the focus that he's had on this leak from the very beginning. I'm known as Brad Sherman from Sherman Oaks, and I will always be from Sherman Oaks as much as Bill Clinton will always be from Arkansas. But about a year ago, we moved up to Porter Ranch, and our home is about as close as anyone's to well SS 25. I want to talk about the past, the present, the future. Past, 115 wells, mostly there to remove oil. They created room for natural gas in a field that's 3,600 acres in size. Shale capstone on top of sandstone from which the oil has been removed. This is the largest natural gas storage facility west of the Mississippi. Buyers in Porter Ranch were not told of its existence. It's been the subject of weak regulation, federal and state. On the federal side, FSMA, the relevant federal agency, has reasonably good regulations for the transportation of natural gas, but is completely punted to the states when it comes to regulating the storage of natural gas. Dogger, the relevant state agency, did not require the most sophisticated ultrasonic or other testing of these wells to find anomalies in the pipes, nor did they require deep subsurface safety valves for those wells that were more than 300 feet away from homes and schools. This is because of a subculture among the regulators and the industry that natural gas is of concern if it's close enough so its burning or even explosion could affect people. But they never thought of natural gas as an air toxin that could affect people 5 miles and even further away. Well, SS-20 had a subsurface safety valve that was removed in 1979 and not replaced. And that was a continuing mistake because it could have been replaced in 79, 89, 99, 2009, or right up until the leak. Present. This is the largest natural gas leak in history. We were up there yesterday. Couldn't see as much because of the fog, but what we heard was a loud sound of natural gas escaping that you could hear quite loudly from over half a mile away. SoCal Gas is withdrawing about 1 billion cubic feet a day from that facility. As they withdraw gas, pressure is down. The leak is not as leaking as much as it used to, but we've had perhaps 4 billion cubic feet leak out so far. But SoCal Gas doesn't want to withdraw gas as fast as possible because they only want to withdraw the gas they can sell at full price, and because they want to save gas there to sell later. I think they should be withdrawing the natural gas as quickly as physically possible. Some 3,000 families have been evacuated. Others are on the waiting list. There is bureaucracy. We've got to cut through the bureaucracy. The federal government, FSMA, got involved at the beginning, but mostly as a consultant. EPA said that they didn't have any jurisdiction. Our office had to do the legal research for them. We showed they do have jurisdiction. They're now involved, but again, just as an advisory capacity. Last week, I wrote the governor laying out the process by which the Small Business Administration would get involved, and it starts with a letter from the governor to the SBA. That letter was sent yesterday, and the EPA is now identifying businesses that could be eligible for 4% 30-year unsecured working capital loans in order to make payroll, et cetera. This would include not only those businesses in the commercial buildings, but the many home businesses. Porter Ranch has large homes with a lot of people dedicating 2 or 3 bedrooms to studios, to home businesses. And finally, there are a lot of people in the landlord business. You can't get a tenant to move into Porter Ranch, but you still have to make the mortgage payments. Now let's talk about the future. This facility is closed down now. They're withdrawing gas, but they're not putting any new gas in. The question is, should it be kept shut down? The community would prefer that that be the case. You shouldn't even think of allowing it to be reopened until it is absolutely safe, both in the eyes of the public and the eyes of the expert. And that would, at a minimum, require that we plug the vintage wells, the ones that are 60 years old, including SS25, which is being plugged hopefully next month. That we install deep subsurface, positive pressure, the modern safety valves, and that we have the sophisticated modern testing, including ultrasonic testing. There are a number of other requirements that would be a minimum before you would consider reopening this facility. We need a robust and redundant natural gas storage system. Right now, we're in a Hobson's choice. 90% roughly of the natural gas storage for the whole LA basin is in Aliso Canyon. So that goes down, reliability goes down too. And then you have the pressure to open it up when you know that the community does not want it reopened. We need to worry about electric reliability, and I'll add for the record, if there's no objections, a letter I sent to the CPUC urging that we study how to import electricity this summer, because we will not be back to business as usual this summer where electric generation facilities are going to be relying in large part on natural gas. I don't know whether this field will be back online. I'm not sure it ever goes back online. We need health testing of residents long term. A lot of the health problems are caused not by the methane, but by the mercaptan that gives natural gas its smell. I am already working with federal agencies to provide grants to do research to come up with some new mercaptan that would have the same benefits but would not be toxic and cause the health problems. And finally, we have to look at home values, because after this leak is plugged, after people are back in their homes, their entire nest egg, their retirement is in the value of that home, and the words Porter Ranch will never mean the same thing as they did on October 22nd. There's not going to be a class action lawsuit. The courts won't allow that. But you don't want thousands, perhaps of 10,000 separate lawsuits clogging the LA Superior Courts. You need to legislate a expedited program by which a fair amount can be determined that SoCal will pay to homeowners who have lost value. The way you would do that is look at what were the homes worth in Porter Ranch on October 22nd compared to similarly priced homes in Woodland Hills or Santa Clarita, and you might find that they're worth the 80% what Woodland Hills would go for, 120% Santa Clarita, whatever that is. And then look on October 22nd of this year and see how much they are lagging behind homes in similar neighborhoods. And if you can have an efficient system, you'll keep the courts from being clogged, you'll save a lot of residents legal fees, and you'll provide a fair system to deal with the single biggest economic effect of this on the community, which is the effect on home values. I look forward to doing anything anybody can think of to push the federal government and its federal agencies to be as helpful as possible, and I yield back.
Test, there we go. Well, thank you very much, Congressman Sherman. Just to recap that last piece of testimony, that was a proposal for the state to introduce legislation that would do an expedited and concentrated way within our court system for homeowners in the areas to seek an expedited payment for the diminution in home values. And I think that's an excellent proposal. I thank you for it, and it's something that I am certainly willing to entertain as chairman of this committee to introduce legislation like that. I think it's a wonderful idea. We thank you for it. All right, next we have the other congressman from Porter Ranch. Porter Ranch is divided in two different congressional districts, and we have our former colleague from the state legislature, Mr. Steve Knight. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's nice to be back with UNC. My testimony here is to talk about what has happened, what should happen, and what we are going to do in the future. If you go onto my website, you can see a timeline of this from October 23rd until today of some of the great things that have been done by folks like Assemblyman Wilk and Councilman Mitch Englander, and the timeline of what things should have been done. If you go onto that website, you will see a complete timeline from the very start. What is needed from the beginning? Not just capping this and stopping this, but constituent services, relocation, reimbursement, the filters, making sure that people are getting taken care of. That is what we have done from the very beginning, and that's what I think everyone should be doing from the beginning. Let the experts stop this, let the relief well get dug and done, and finish with constituent services. I think everyone has been contacted at this time. I've talked to the administrator of FEMA, EPA, DOT, CARB, the governor's office, and AQMD personally. I think everyone knows about this leak, and everyone has been involved. The federal agencies have been involved since the very first week. The EPA knew about this after about October 27th. So people know what has been going on. The things that we should be doing is taking care of the constituent services and making sure that the leak is done. But how do we do that? Let's make sure that Boots and Coots has what they need to do at the site. Let's make sure that Doggart is there 24/7, which is exactly what they're doing, which is exactly what they do every day. I just came from the site in Santa Clarita. I did talk to SoCal Gas there and talk to them about similar issues at Santa Clarita that happened at Aliso Canyon. In the future, I am writing a package of legislation that will be brought forward to the House. I hope to have co-authors. We will have it in print by next week, if not the week after, and it'll talk about minimum standards and standards for underground piping. I do believe that we should work connectively with the state and the federal government to make sure that these problems don't happen in the future, to make sure that if we are doing regulations and we are covering things, that we're not doing two sets of work and we're making sure that this doesn't happen in the future. I look forward to working with UNC, I look forward to working with the chair, and I yield back.
Thank you very much. We're now going to go to our California State Secretary of Natural Resources for his brief opening statement. This is Mr. John Laird. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. There we go. Thank you for inviting me to this hearing. I'm appreciative to be back in the area today in Granada Hills. I was in Porter Ranch last Friday. I visited the well site. I was impressed with how close homes were to the well. I attended the community meeting, and I heard the concerns expressed by many of the 1,100 community members that were there. This gas leak has impacted Porter Ranch and the surrounding community in countless ways, many of them causing concern, lack of trust, and dislocation, and we heard that loud and clear last Friday. The truth is, I can't even imagine what it would be like to be forced out of my home. I want everyone to know that we're doing everything in our power to make sure people can go home and be safe again, and imagining just that very fact is what I think drives the urgency to this situation. This issue is a top priority for the administration. The governor was here. We're briefing him regularly. He has declared a state of emergency. Cabinet members and other top administration members were here last week. As Congressman Knight said, Dogger is here and on the ground all the time. We've heard people's concerns. We know this leak must be stopped, and we know we must take steps to ensure that it does not happen again anywhere in California. Given the desire of the chair to be brief and to do new things or developments, I just have a few things to mention that came up last week at the hearing about that fall in that category. First, there were concerns raised at the public meeting that there was not air quality monitoring outside the Porter Ranch area. The Air Resources Board is now installing 2 additional air quality monitoring stations to measure methane south of the 188 freeway, and hourly data will be available on the Air Resources Board website. Last Friday at the hearing, one person asked, will we, the ratepayers, foot the bill for what has happened since the leak began? The governor directed us to make sure the ratepayers are protected, and he specifically said in his executive order, the California Public Utilities Commission shall ensure that Southern California Gas Company covers costs related to the natural gas leak and its response while protecting ratepayers. There were concerns raised about the status of not just the damaged well, but of the others at the facility. First, it is important to reiterate that the moratorium on the injection of gas into the reservoir will remain in effect until a comprehensive review of each well at the facility has been completed and the air quality in the surrounding communities has been determined to be safe. These determinations will need to be signed off by independent experts. Additionally, the Department of Conservation issued emergency regulations at the end of last week that apply to all gas storage facilities in the state and that require operators of these facilities to conduct at least daily inspections for leaks at gas storage wells using leak detection technology such as infrared imaging, as well as requiring these operators to submit comprehensive risk management plans to the department that identify how they are mitigating any potential risks, and these regulations are expected to be in effect in early February. I know there are people here from the departments to answer more technical questions, and I know that the chair wanted this to be brief, so I too look forward to hearing from members of the public.
Terrific. Thank you very much. Next, we have our representative from Southern California Gas Company, and that is Mr. Jimmy Cho.
Good evening, Chairman Gatto and members of the committee. Thank you for allowing me the time to be here tonight. My name is Jimmy Cho, and I'm the Senior Vice President of Gas Operations and System Integrity for SoCal Gas. And I'm also the Incident Commander for this situation. I want to acknowledge the commitment and hard work of the Chair, the committee, and my fellow speakers for the continued interest and work in this important matter. Let me start by saying that on behalf of SoCal Gas and my entire team, I sincerely apologize for the inconvenience and discomfort caused by the natural gas leak. Our team is committed to safely stopping the leak as soon as possible. And as the executive in charge of the incident response, I take my professional responsibility very, very seriously. And for me, this is very personal. The San Fernando Valley is my home. It's been my home since my parents moved us out here in the 1970s. And my wife and our 3 sons call this our home still. We attend church in Chatsworth, and we have many friends who live in the Porter Ranch area. While I'm not directly impacted by it, I do understand the impact of the incident on people's lives. My career with SoCal Gas spans over 25 years, and I'm proud to work for a company that's been serving our customers for over a century with safe and reliable gas. We support 20 million customers in over 11 counties. We supply clean-burning natural gas for homes to cook, to heat, and to commercial industrial customers who rely on the gas to fuel their businesses. And very importantly, to the region's power plants that look to natural gas as a clean fuel source for grid reliability. Today I want to provide you with information about SoCal Gas, our operations in Southern California, the storage field, the leak, the progress we're making in stopping the leak, and a summary of our efforts to mitigate the impacts of that leak. We operate 4 underground storage fields in Southern California, and these fields are critical to our efforts to provide safe and reliable service to the region. For example, this storage capacity enables us to purchase natural gas on behalf of customers when it's available and less expensive, and to deliver it during periods of high demand. This reduces costs to customers and protects against supply shortages and price spikes. It also allows us to continue to provide natural gas to our customers in the event of a temporary disruption in the interstate supply system, during extreme cold events, or during hot weather conditions when the need for power generation is fairly high. This is known as peak shaving. The Aliso Canyon storage field is the company's largest field in Southern California. It has a capacity of 86.2 billion cubic feet of working storage inventory. Nearly 2/3 of our company's storage capacity in Southern California. And the size and location of the field make it particularly important as a strategic asset to the region's energy supply. Let me talk a little bit about the well itself. SS25 is a designation. It's one of 115 gas wells at the site, and it's used for the withdrawal and injection of natural gas for storage. It's 8,500 deep underground in our storage reservoir. And like all of our wells at the site, they're inspected and monitored on an annual, weekly, and daily basis. On the afternoon of Friday, 23rd, 2015, natural gas was discovered to be leaking from the SS25 area. And upon discovery, we immediately implemented our standard leak discovery and control procedures, which call for a methodical and sequential approach to locate and seal the leak. Then the next day, on Saturday, the 24th, we performed a well kill procedure with fluids to stop the leak. This process, which is used throughout the industry as a reliable means to control wells, was unsuccessful in stopping the leak. When our initial efforts at stopping the leak proved to be unsuccessful, we sought the assistance of well control experts outside the company to assist us. The very next day, Sunday the 25th, the highly regarded well control firm of Boots & Coots was brought into Aliso Canyon. 6 additional well kill attempts directed by Boots & Coots were made over the next 2 months, and all failed to stop the leak. Concurrently with these efforts, we developed an alternative plan to drill a relief well to intercept SS25 and stop the leak by first pumping liquids and then cement into the bottom of the well. This is a complicated procedure that requires drilling an entirely new well to locate the leaking target well and intercept the target well casing at more than 1.5 miles underground. Once we intercept the target well, we'll drill into the casing and inject liquids and cement to plug the well permanently. Since we began planning the relief well in November and beginning drilling operations in early December, the relief well remains our highest priority. We continue to make excellent progress on the lateral relief well. We currently believe that we will be in a position to intercept the well and stop the leak by late February, if not sooner. All of our work on the well has been performed in close coordination with regulatory agencies, including the South Coast Air Quality Management District and DOGGR. As you're also aware, we've been evaluating since November various options to safely capture and process the methane leaking from the well. Working with South Coast, AQMD, and other state and local agencies, we used our best efforts to develop and consider multiple plans to safely capture and process the methane. After consultation with our safety team and state regulators, we determined that a methane capture and processing system cannot be installed without unacceptable safety risks. As a result, we've advised the governor and the effective agencies that we are terminating this component of our ongoing mitigation program. In the interim and consistent with the governor's order, we're taking several actions to mitigate the effects of the leak. For example, we're reducing the amount of gas in the storage field by temporarily ceasing the injection of new gas while delivering as much gas, withdrawing as much gas as we can to our customers from the facility and still being reliable in our service. And fortunately, this effort seems to be yielding positive results. Based on the most recent posted January 12th data, preliminary emissions estimates by the Air Resources Board, CARB, show that estimated emissions have decreased by more than 60% since CARB's peak estimates in November 28th. Just as important, we're also taking steps to mitigate the impact of the leak on the community. For example, we're implementing an extensive relocation program to provide reasonable alternative accommodations to those residents who choose to leave the immediate area. To date, we've provided temporary housing options.
Mr. Cho, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think you're telling us things that have been reported publicly so far, and I asked in my opening remarks that I quoted from your company's 2014 testimony to the CPUC, and I'm going to ask this question again. You came to the CPUC, you asked for higher rates. You asked for everybody in this community, everybody in Southern California to pay higher rates. You said, and this is in your testimony, that you need to be more proactive. You said that you found corrosion at this site. You said that this is indicative of production casing leaks. You said that there's corrosion or mechanical damage in 15 wells, and that over 50 wells are over 70 years old. So my question goes back to you, and I'm going to ask the CPUC next. How did this happen?
We don't know. I think the thing we have to rely on is the fact that there will be an investigation, and we need to let the facts come out through that investigation.
It just strikes me that if I was if I was the company, if I was the regulator, and I submitted a public document of testimony saying that there was corrosion at a natural gas well, that the very next act that I would have done as a company and the very next act that I would have done as a regulator would be to go out there and test every single well and close them down where applicable. So, okay, so we're gonna next turn to, do you have more comments that you'd like to say at this point? Okay, we're gonna next turn to the CPUC, represented by Elizaveta Maloshenko, for some brief remarks. Thank you.
Just talk, they'll turn it on.
Test?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am the Director of Safety and Enforcement at the California Public Utilities Commission, or the CPUC for short. First of all, let me express my sincerest condolences to the community members that are here tonight and everyone who is being impacted by this. Because of this leak, lives have been extremely disrupted, and every bit of frustration that has been expressed to date has been justified. It is my job to do everything in my capacity to leave staff at the CPUC to help bring swift resolution to the current situation and restore a sense of normalcy and security for the local community. I'd like to start by explaining the role of the CPUC in the situation. The CPUC has broad authority over private for-profit gas utilities such as SoCal Gas. We review their costs, approve their rates, and oversee their staff programs. For safety of natural gas storage facilities, we have overlapping jurisdiction with the Department of Gas and Geothermal Resources, or DOGGR, and the agencies work closely together. I want to briefly highlight 4 major areas of CPUC action in response to the current gas leak. 1, stopping the leak. 2, ensuring energy reliability. 3, protecting customers from any unreasonable costs. And 4, completing a thorough investigation to ensure that nothing like this ever happens again. First, the highest priority for the CPUC is to help stop the current leak and end the suffering of the local community as soon as possible. The CPUC led an effort to identify and pursue all viable options to maximize gas withdrawal from Aliso Canyon. Withdrawing gas from Aliso Canyon reduces the overall pressure in the storage reservoir, which in turn reduces the leak. As Mr. Cho stated, the Air Resources Board estimates the leak has been reduced by 60% from the peak leak rate. Aliso Canyon has capacity for approximately 160 billion cubic feet of natural gas. For context, the daily demand for the entire SoCal gas system is around 4 billion cubic feet. The 160 billion cubic feet in Aliso Canyon is split roughly equally between what is called working gas and cushion gas. Working gas can be injected and withdrawn for operational reasons. Cushion gas allows this facility to have the minimum pressure necessary to support operations. As of yesterday, there are 22 billion cubic feet of working gas. Is closer further? Right. Can you hear me better now? All right, I will try not to move. There are about 22 billion cubic feet of working gas right now in Aliso Canyon, not accounting for the leak. The total is estimated around 5 billion cubic feet by Air Resources Board. The CPUC worked with the California Energy Commission, the California Independent System Operator, and other agencies to determine how far we can reduce the amount of gas stored in Aliso Canyon while still being able to ensure that we keep homes heated and keep gas-fired power plants running. Just earlier today, CPUC notified SoCal Gas that that they are to withdraw working gas down to 15 billion cubic feet of working gas and then hold the inventory at that level until otherwise directed by the agencies. This was done in order to ensure energy reliability in the LA basin. This brings me to the second focus area, which is energy reliability. Aliso Canyon plays a critical role in providing natural gas to the LA basin. During the winter, if there is a cold snap, Aliso Canyon gas is required to meet the demand in the LA basin for activities like home heating, heating water, and cooking. In the summer, Aliso Canyon plays a critical role in supporting electric generation from gas-fired power plants on very hot peak demand days. This role has become especially critical with the high penetration of solar. As the day ends and the solar comes offline, gas-fired power plants in the LA basin start serving that demand. This happens very fast, and gas has to be available in the pipelines as the switch from solar to gas happens. In short, in the winter, Aliso Canyon is needed to heat the homes and cook the food, and in the summer, Aliso Canyon is needed to make sure that the lights stay on. We hear the message loud and clear that many members of the community want Aliso Canyon permanently taken out of service. We will certainly consider that option at the PUC. However, it is absolutely necessary that an analysis is done of how the facility could be taken offline without causing blackouts in the summer and loss of gas for heating and cooking in the winter. The CPUC is undertaking this analysis in 2 stages. First, we're working on the analysis of how reliability issues can be addressed now, and if the Aliso Canyon is not operational in the upcoming summer. This will include addressing all recommendations that we have received, including the letter from Congressman Sherman today. The second part of the analysis is understanding how reliability issues can be addressed if the Aliso Canyon facility is not operational next winter and beyond. Now I'm going to switch gears a little bit and talk about something that I know everybody is interested in, and that is cost. The governor directed the CPUC in his emergency proclamation to ensure that the ratepayers do not inappropriately pay for costs associated with this leak. The CPUC understands this and has directed SoCal Gas to track all the costs associated with the leak and to report those costs both to the CPUC and the public on a monthly basis. Rest assured that we're taking SoCal Gas expenses very closely, and no unreasonable cost will find a way into utility bills. I also want to clarify the relationship of historic CPUC authorization to recovery of cost and safety. By law, SoCal Gas is required to operate their system safely. The utility is allowed to incur costs that are necessary to maintain a same system and is required to do whatever is necessary to ensure safety, whether that means doing maintenance and repair work or even taking parts of system out of service. The CPUC approved 100% of the maintenance and safety budget that the gas company requested for Aliso Canyon during the last expenditure approval process that covered the period from 2012 through 2015. The part of testimony that has been referred to is for the next rate case where SoCal Gas was asking for money and justifying increased expenditures for 2016 and beyond. That decision is still pending with the commission. And I hear again with loud and clear that there's a lot of concern of why this wasn't picked up by the agencies earlier, and I can address that further in the Q&A because I think it's a larger discussion. But I think there's absolutely more that could have been done, and there were also already steps implemented since, but they just weren't in place yet when that filing was made. Finally, the CPUC has begun the process to fully evaluate everything that SoCal Gas has been authorized to spend by the CPUC and what they have actually spent that money on. It is important to note that this analysis is in addition to the checks and balances that are already built into the CPUC process to monitor spending by utilities. Now I'm going to conclude by talking very briefly about the fourth and final major area of focus for the CPUC, which is the investigation of the current leak. We have already begun our investigation into what happened and will be taking all appropriate enforcement actions. Our investigation is a broad and in-depth assessment of SoCal Gas actions before and after the well failure, including public notifications and issues relating to the SoCal Gas operation and maintenance of the gas storage facility in general. We, along with Dogger, are focusing our investigation on the historic operation and mechanical conditions of the well to determine the cause of the well failure and the subsequent natural gas leak. Both our agencies will be authorizing an independent third party to perform a technical root cause analysis of the well failure. Those findings will also be available to the public. The third party is being jointly selected by the agencies, and I expect to notify SoCal Gas of the selection by the end of the day tomorrow. Finally, the CPUC will be engaged in the effort to make sure that this never happens again. This includes identifying and implementing lessons learned for our agency. Thank you for your time. This concludes my remarks.
Thank you. So just a couple reminders to those in the audience. If you want to speak, please pick up a comment card. We're going to go to public comment very shortly, so just pick up a comment card. Those who are handing out comment cards, if you could hold your hands up so everybody could see you. Everybody who wants a comment card or has them, and put your hand up and we'll get around to you, and we'll get your comment cards in. Just so you know what we're going to do, we're going to go to public comments in the next couple minutes. Typically, we would go to questions or comments from the panel, but we've chosen tonight to intersperse them with your remarks. So if someone asks something on a topic, members of this panel will intersperse their questions and comments with yours so that this meeting can be as interactive as possible and so all of you can get your questions and comments in. We have a brief statement from Jason Marshall from the Department of Conservation, but before he gives it, I'd like to just ask for a show of hands for certain members of the public out there in the audience. We just heard from the CPUC about the need to have gas reservoirs to deal with, as she put it, off-peak power needs and everything like that. I'd just like a show of hands from those in the audience who feel that we should shut down this reservoir. Okay, and those of you who do not want this reservoir shut down. Okay. And then another show of hands real quick while we're on this. How many members here are actually how many members of the audience are here from Porter Ranch? Got it. And how many members of the audience are here from Chatsworth, Northridge, Granada Hills, other surrounding areas? Okay, because I know there's a lot of concerns from those communities as well. How many people in the audience have already been relocated? Okay, and how many folks are waiting for their relocation? Still a few. Okay. Okay, and those of you who are waiting for your relocation, if what you want to do is write your name on one of our comment cards, we'll make sure that we connect you and get those relocation resources to you. okay? So anyone who's waiting for relocation or waiting for some type of constituent service from the federal government, the state government, the county government, the city government, a park district, let us know. We'll get those constituent services over to you. All right, so we're going to go to public comments in 5 minutes, but first a brief statement from Mr. Jason Marshall.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for the time. Good evening to you and the members of the committee. I will make this brief, taking out some redundancies from other testimony. We at the department understand, first off, let me just say this. We at the department understand that you and the residents in the Porter Ranch and neighboring communities are very concerned about your safety, you and your families. Yes, I'll move in closer. As a leader of our Department of Conservation, my number one responsibility since this leak began has been to do everything we can and our team every day to safeguard this community. My job is also to make sure that SoCal Gas stops this leak as quickly and as safely as possible. My team is on site every day, critically evaluating and directing SoCal Gas's plans to shut the well. We're part of a multidisciplinary team organized and coordinated by the Governor's Office of Emergency Services. This is a unique and complicated situation, and unfortunately there is no quick fix. But our plan is to seal this well forever and to make sure that all the other wells at this site are safe before we authorize SoCal Gas to inject any more gas into storage. On October 23rd of last year, as you know, this leak was discovered. The Department of Conservation staff learned about the leak, and we rapidly responded and have been on scene daily, advising and overseeing work to control the well. After the first well control attempt failed, the division directed Southern California Gas to halt injection into the storage facility. That was intended to make sure that we could reduce the pressure in the formation. The governor included that in his ban on injections, in his executive order. He continued that ban on injection. This has helped slow the rate of the gas leak, and as has been noted, the flow is now 60% less. Separate and distinct from the Aliso Canyon incident, the department released a renewal plan for oil and gas regulation last August. That plan includes a review and update of rules related to underground injection, including rules governing gas storage facilities. At the direction of the governor and his order on January 6, the department accelerated that process, issuing emergency regulations for gas storage facilities just last week. Those rules will authorize the division to establish pressure limits for safe operation of gas storage fields, require additional testing and monitoring of valves and well components, increase frequency and types of inspections, and require that storage facilities establish risk management plans. In addition to those new regulatory...
Mr. Marshall, I don't mean to interrupt you, but this is stuff that's been publicly reported in the newspaper. I asked everybody here to offer new information. I would venture that everybody in the public, I won't ask for a show of hands, but we all know about the history of this leak. I think we have a lot of people who've been waiting very patiently for all of us to shut up, quite frankly. And so I'm just going to turn it over to public comment for a couple minutes. We have, our first speaker is from the Porter Ranch Neighborhood Council, and this is Mr. Eric Nam. Mr. Eric Nam, please come on up. Thank you.
Hello? Testing? Hello, testing. Okay.
There you go.
All right. Thank you, Assemblyman Gatto and fellow Assembly people. My name is Eric Nam. I serve on the Porter Ranch Neighborhood Council as both the Secretary of the Executive Committee and Chair of the Land Use Committee. More importantly, I am here as a still proud resident stakeholder of Porter Ranch. As you know, our community is embroiled in a national, if not global, catastrophe that has had devastating and ongoing effects to the entire area. Thousands of folks have been forced to temporarily relocate, and that word the definition of temporary now has become several months. People ranging in all ages, from infants to adults to the elderly, folks with significant health issues, many expecting mothers, families with multiple children and pets, all not able to live in their own homes. And there are some residents looking to permanently move out of Porter Ranch, which will yet be another devastating blow to our neighborhood. We are bracing ourselves for a possibly large hit in the housing market. We have canceled escrows, canceled listings, banks not wanting to lend to potential buyers. The residents not only want restoration and recompense, they want the community to come out of this better and stronger and more vibrant than ever before. But that can only happen with the absolute, unwavering assurance that this will not happen again. Small businesses, the local mom and pop shops in the community, have been drastically affected as their regular customers are simply no longer in the area. Many business owners are having difficulty making lease payments. Larger anchors seem to be holding on as many of their customer base come from outside the area. However, that could change too, as more and more people simply just do not come to Porter Ranch. Our children, the students at our schools, have been displaced from their classrooms. The schools have relocated, and the emotional distress that comes from the fear and uncertainty, the disconnection, let alone the physical harm caused by this leak, is immeasurable and an unwanted test of our resilience. We want our kids back in our community, in their classrooms, and in their homes, safely where they belong. The community is divided on the future of the storage field. Many feel it needs to be shut down wholly and forever. The groups Save Porter Ranch and Food and Water Watch have done an excellent job and continue to do an excellent job at leading this charge and raising awareness. Others see it as an important utility resource that services 22 million customers, but they will not be distracted from the fact that the site absolutely must be made safe for the residents that live so close to the facility. And the government and respective agencies charged with regulating this safety must make these assurances. The community wants to know, see, and understand the ongoing testing data from all the agencies. We want the agencies to maintain video records using, for example, FLIR camera technology and give us ongoing evaluation of the leak, how it is acting, and where it is going. We want to know if they can determine a sweet spot for the ongoing gas pressure in the fields, the balance of storage and demand, and maintain such a level, never going above it until the wells are deemed safe. The break presumably happened at 90% capacity. We need to find a safe pressure level for this field until every single well can be examined and retrofitted, not only to meet but exceed modern safety standards. Any well that cannot be deemed absolutely safe must be shut down or killed, I believe is the industry term. We need to know if there should be a hold on bringing the new compressors online until experts and agencies can determine that the added pressure and stresses of it do not exacerbate the conditions of older wells. We need to ensure that there will be better and faster leak detection with immediate notice, not just idly waiting for or spotting that now all too familiar smell of rotting eggs. We need to be assured that a shutoff valve or kill feature be installed at the base of every single well. If for whatever reason there is a well that cannot bear such a safety feature, then kill it. We need to know, is there a federal or state guideline on what is a safe distance for homes to be constructed adjacent to a site like this? And if not, why not? And let's hurry up and get that in place. Are there alternative odorants that can be added to the resource that are proven to be non-toxic, non-carcinogenic, simply non-effective other than having a smell? We need to ensure that any and all fines imposed upon the gas company comes back to the community to mitigate the damage caused by the negative impact of this leak. This impact greatly affected our families, our children, our parents, our elders, and our businesses. Property values are in jeopardy, and there's much uncertainty in the air. No pun intended. We need to implement an oversight committee to work with all regulatory agencies in determining future standards and regulations, specific requirements that the gas company needs to make at this site immediately. We need to have a long-term plan to ensure its absolute safety with unwavering assurances that this will never happen again. Anything short of that, simply shut it down. There are so many agencies working in different capacities and in fact in different directions. We need an oversight committee to bring continuity and synergy, streamlining and focus to the collective efforts. There are also many elected community leaders working on this, but we must take this opportunity to give special thanks to our councilmember, Mitch Englander, and his staff, who has been fearlessly and tirelessly leading our community through this most challenging ordeal. Even before this incident, he and his staff were ever present and proved their commitment. His efforts now only cement that commitment. So thank you, Councilmember. Porter Ranch will come back from this. We will restore, rebuild, and revitalize this community into something even better than it was just a few months ago. But it will take time, it will take patience, resilience, an abundance of resources, and a collective effort to thrive again. We will not give up, we will not relent, and we will not let this unfathomable disaster remain a stain on our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, next we're going to hear from that council member. This is somebody, of course, who cares very much about the local area and has really been on the front line, and that's Councilman Mike Gatto.
All right, thank you. And before I start off with some of my comments to this committee, I want to thank this community. This is a phenomenal community. I actually live within the 5-mile radius as well, as do some other elected officials. And this community is a resilient community. This community has been through a lot far before this gas leak. This has been the epicenter in Los Angeles of major disasters, from the Northridge earthquake, the Chatsworth train collision, so many fires, so many things that we've gone through, and this community rebuilds and is resilient and comes together even stronger and better, and I have all the faith that we'll do that now. Unfortunately, in this case, we're also very vulnerable. We're vulnerable to a company that's outside the city boundaries, that's outside our jurisdiction here locally, and that's in the hands of the regulators in Sacramento that are overseen by their state legislators and members of Congress. I want to thank you for being here today and having this hearing in this community. That's really important. It's not just symbolic. It's very important. Today's the 90th day of this tragedy, of this disaster. This is 90 days of families being scared, have fled their homes. 1/3 of Porter Ranch have fled. Folks in Chatsworth, Northridge, Granada Hills impacted. We've relocated 2 schools, 2,000 kids and staff and faculty. This is their major nest egg. This is their biggest investment in their life. And they're scared of losing it. They're scared of losing the equity and the stigma that might come with this. They're scared of their health and the unknown health conditions and health risks. There's been no long-term health studies on this. None. So moving forward, I want to thank, first of all, a few people before I ask of this committee what needs to be done. The Porter Ranch Neighborhood Council has stepped up. And if you think about the intent and the idea and the spirit of which neighborhood councils were created, nobody could fathom, nobody could put together at that time what that meant in a crisis. And they've stepped up. And I want to give them and recognize them a lot of gratitude, particularly Paula and her leadership as well. I'd also like to take a minute and recognize the folks with Save Porter Ranch, who not only continue to provide additional research, that continue to hold people accountable and people's feet to the fire and participate and disseminate information. And that's been one of the biggest frustrations in this, is the lack of information dissemination. The little information we do get often, we actually, I think, are even more frustrated when we learn what we don't know. And we still don't know what we don't know. 90 days today, and this is the first hearing from the state of California, officially, the first official hearing in 90 days. It hasn't taken 90 days to have this hearing. It's taken 70 years. This is 70 years overdue. This facility is too old. It needs to be upgraded and modernized. It needs your oversight. And I know you're all willing to do it. I've talked to many of you often and personally. I was up at the site with Assemblymember Matt DeBobney the other day and meeting with Scott Wilk. I was up there the other day with Congressman Sherman, had a meeting yesterday with Congressman Knight. I know you are all engaged in this, and our lives are in your hands. And I believe we are fortunate to have you there, because I know we can get this done. But this is now on you, to go after the regulators and toughen the legislation and give them some teeth. There's a number of things that have been asked for, and I want to ask for a couple of additional things that and tack on to what the Porter Ranch Neighborhood Council just asked for in the form of state legislation as well. We also have to increase the public disclosure requirements for oil and gas storage facilities including but not limited to the number of wells, the current status of emergency valves, the age of the wells, and the related infrastructure, and make publicly available the inspection history for each well. We have to establish an official moratorium for new gas wells and gas storage wells until all existing wells are brought up to current standards. In fact, the current standards are no good. Require immediate disclosure of leaks to the community and to the government representatives. We didn't even get a phone call. Nobody had any idea what was happening for days. We have to require the new best available technologies to be incorporated for monitoring and preventing future leaks. There is more technology in my cell phone today in the newest well at this site. We have to require yearly updates of safety and prevention plans and emergency plans to be filled with the appropriate regulatory agencies for review. We have to require equipment necessary to enact the emergency plan to be located on site at all times so that there is no lag time between an incident and the necessary remediation. There's no reason that there was no contingency plan in place for an operation this size. 11 counties, 22 million customers, and they didn't have any equipment on site in the event that they couldn't close a well, that they couldn't kill a well. That makes no sense. It's not reasonable. That can't happen again. It took 3 weeks to locate the equipment in the Gulf states and bring it here and set it up. It wasn't even on site. We've got to create a permanent moratorium on the remediation costs being passed on to ratepayers and taxpayers. This community has already hurt enough. This cannot be passed on to them. And we've got to create a mechanism for calculating the environmental damage so that the true cost of remediating additional greenhouse gas emissions will be borne by the polluter and not the ratepayers. Again, I want to thank you for hosting this here, Mr. Chairman. We all truly appreciate you all coming here to this community. It's so important. I would ask one last thing. While this committee is going to continue to meet and debate and regulate and update all the enforcement rules and regulations in this industry, I ask that we do so not only in a transparent manner, but come back here. Keep us informed. Let us know what's going on. Host this again. Our doors are open to you anytime. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to go into a couple more ground rules for public comment, and then I'm going to turn it over for a question from this dais. First of all, in public comment, we're going to try to seek people to asking new questions, things that have not been asked previously, and also to keep their comments to a minimum. I trust everybody in this room is mature enough that they can do it. As a guideline, we're going to have you're running out of time card and the you're out of time card. Everyone's familiar with what these symbols mean. And we're not doing this because we want to cut you off. We're doing this so that your other peers have a chance to speak. Obviously, if any one person goes over too long, then other people won't get their questions answered. So before we go into our next public, I'm going to call the next group of 3 or 4 people up to the microphones. And if you get up there so that you're in line and we can ask your questions fast. We have Angelo Bellomo, Patrick Pope, Kelly Geel at 1855 Porter Valley Drive. Kelly Hill, maybe? I don't know. And then Susan Gorman Chang. If you guys will step up and get in line, and then we're going to turn to my colleague, Mr. Dababne, who has a question.
District. Can you hear me now? My district is the 45th Assembly District, which is just south of Porter Ranch, from roughly the 405 all the way up to Chatsworth and to Calabasas. Part of the 5-mile radius includes communities of Northridge and Chatsworth, which are in that district. My question today for Mr. Cho would be, what was the procedure to notify residents once you knew there was a leak? And to the PUC, is there any regulations in place that regulate how these type of incidents have to be reported to residents and communities once a leak is detected like this?
It'll come on once you...
Yeah, okay, thank you. In this instance, we made the appropriate notifications to the agencies from the beginning. And with respect to the customers, And the agency that I'm referring to is, we notified the jurisdictional agency, which is Dogger in this case.
Did Dogger notify the residents, or did the gas company notify the residents?
I believe we notified the residents.
And do you know within what time frame residents were originally notified? Are we talking 48 hours? Are we talking a week? Did many of them learn from the press, or did they get a letter in their mailbox or a call to their house?
I believe what happened is there were calls for odors, and so the contact center started to get those calls within days.
So I guess my follow-up would be, if the PUC doesn't, should the PUC or Dogger have in place standards and regulations to notify residents and businesses to make sure that they're aware of a leak within 48 hours or 72 hours or as soon as possible? Because I don't think residents should have to find out about the leak or any type of natural disaster, in this case, a gas leak, from their news at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock at night. My final follow-up to that would be, how did you determine the 5-mile radius? And do you see that expanding in the near future to a bigger radius?
In my incident command, I do have a customer assistance team. I personally cannot comment. My primary focus in the incident, first and foremost, is the safety, but stopping the leak. So I'd have to get back to you on that. And if you will, I'd be glad to. Sir.
I would appreciate, I think all of our colleagues here would appreciate knowing exactly what went into the determination of that 5-mile leak. And I would once again stress to the regulators here, especially from the PUC, I find it unconscionable that the PUC would not have in place some type of regulation that would dictate to our utility companies, especially a company that's dealing with gas, some type of protocol to make sure that residents are notified in a timely manner and not just on the newscast, and also to determine how they would determine this type of ring that they've drawn to make sure residents are getting the best information possible. Thank you.
We could ask our tech folks to be a little bit more sharp with the microphones. This is an ongoing thing.
Yeah, sorry, I'm
Yes.
struggling with this a little bit. I just wanted to share with you that first, we did receive notification from SoCal Gas on October 25th, and I will read you exactly what it said. It said, it's very short. It just says, leak from an existing Aliso Canyon storage well, no ignition, no injury, no media, notification due to operator judgment only. So that's the information we received, because I just wanted to kind of clarify that yes, we got the notification, but that's the amount of information that we had. And there are requirements, some requirements for public notification on the electric side and transmission and distribution, but obviously they were not extensive enough to prevent the issue that we had here, that the community was not notified in time.
I would strongly recommend that you develop regulations to make sure that all utilities have in place some type of protocol to notify residents and communities when a situation like this occurs. I just can't stress that enough, and I think we'll probably have to look at that with a legislative fix possibly.
Absolutely, thank you.
Quick question, Ms. Malachenko. What's the annual budget of the CPUC?
I would have to get back to you. I run the Safety and Enforcement Division. Our budget includes the money that we distribute for public purpose programs. So I wouldn't want to give you.
I would venture it's in the hundreds of millions of dollars. I'm sure somebody could Google it before you get back to me, and maybe we could find out.
Yes, it is online.
But what I'm struggling to understand is my colleague, Mr. Dababne, asked when you got notified. And you got this notification, and I heard what you read, and it was a little bit cryptic and it was a little bit short, but still within that notification were the words gas leak. And when I hear the words gas leak, I hear, my reaction is, oh crap. And I would immediately, if I was a regulator that had a $100 million budget, I would immediately send out an inspector to the gas leak, like yesterday. And I think a lot of us are wondering why that, and by the way, not just to that well, but to the hundreds of other wells that are in the area.
Absolutely. If I could just clarify, is that we did contact Dogger and made sure that they were sending an inspector out. So the way that our jurisdiction works is that we work together and they have the primary jurisdiction over wells. As it became clear as time progressed that this was a much bigger issue than the typical kind of scenarios that you have in storage facilities, we did send an inspector out as well. But I absolutely take your point.
And
How many days after the leak did you send an inspector out?
I don't have the exact date, but I believe it was the first week of November.
okay,
So within 10 days.
Yes, and we were doing inquiries at the same time and communicating with Dogger as well.
Do you know when Dogger sent out their original inspector?
Assemblyman, Dogger sent out an inspector the day that we were notified of the leak. They went to the site. They determined that the leak that was being reported did not appear to be a leak from, say, a valve or something like that, but that it did appear to be deeper. And it was at that point in time that we started being in consultation with SoCal Gas about what kinds of control attempts needed to be taken.
Thank you.
But, and to riff on that one question, if I may, Mr. Chairman, I think you asked a question about OES notification in your opening statements. OES was notified on October 25th. And we'll look into and be able to get back to you about what steps that activates after a notification of a leak. There are thresholds of notification dependent upon the severity of the instance.
so the other question that I still haven't gotten an answer to, and I'm mindful that people are waiting to talk, but this one is just one that I think is the most critical one tonight and as we move forward, and that is, we have a 2014 filing. It's a public filing that's available on the internet. There's a 2014 filing of sworn testimony before the CPUC from SoCal Gas saying that we have a problem. There is corrosion in some of these wells. We had a problem in 2008 on this site. We have wells that are old. We need to be more proactive to monitor them. There's an MOU between the CPUC and between Dogger where you guys are supposed to share information. How is it possible that if in 2014 there was a public filing before the CPUC that Dogger was not notified or that Dogger was not made aware and that Dogger did not go out and inspect these wells? I do not understand that. That is something that I cannot personally fathom.
Thank you for your question. I'm not here to make excuses. I think your point is exactly right. Because that notification to Dogger from the PUC did not happen. They do not participate in the commission proceedings, which is obviously something that should have been caught earlier and corrected. I do want to say one thing is that we do know the issue that of safety review in rate cases. It's been brought up before. We get hundreds and thousands of pages of testimony from different entities, and we don't have a single safety intervener. And this is something that President Picker has been mentioning and calling for a long time, that we need an entity such as we have TURN for rates that advocates on behalf of ratepayers to keep the rates low, that does this independent evaluation for safety that really gives the commission the record and can catch these types of issues. So again, I think there are absolutely improvements to be made so that these kinds of things don't fall through the crack, and it's something that we would absolutely welcome dialogue on.
Thank you. We're now going to go to the people who have been waiting very patiently out there. Just please remember, everybody, to keep your comments as short as possible. Ask new questions. Focus on new information. We have some guidelines here. We'll hold up things if you're using your too much time. And first up is Angelo Baloma. Welcome, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Baloma.
Thank you very much, Assemblyman Gatto and members of the committee. I'm Angelo Baloma, Deputy Director for Health Protection for the County Public Health Department. And I think, as the committee knows, the health of many residents in the community surrounding this facility has been impacted by emissions from the facility. And it's primarily the odorous sulfur compounds where these impacts have been most visible and most apparent. The questions that we're getting from members of the community, and fair questions, are will these current effects, these short-term effects, will they lead to permanent damage in those that are being exposed? And equally important, are there other chemicals being emanated from this field which do have long-term health implications for the people living in the community? Now, there have been a number of samples collected since the first couple of weeks of the incident. And the samples in total have been looked at, and 3 separate organizations have opined on what they believe those samples indicate in terms of short-term health effects and the potential for long-term chronic exposure and damage. And in essence, the findings were that the exposure to the odorous sulfur compounds, which are causing the symptoms that are frequently reported by many homeowners in the area or residents in the area, those will persist as long as the odors are present within the area. Our department made the determination that in order for those residents to get relief, if this emissions were going to continue for some time, the only way to do that was to separate them from the emissions, and that was the basis of the directive that the health department wrote, indicating that people should be offered temporary relocation, any individuals that are being affected. Now, the opinions that have been expressed by the other agencies in total, I can just tell you, the Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment at the state, our department, and I know recently the AQMD has entered their opinion on this. If you look at all of the data collected to date, the numbers themselves do not suggest that exposure to benzene or the other toxic chemicals that have been determined, that exposure to those compounds in the concentrations that have been recorded do not represent elevated risk of developing illness. But I think it's very important for us to keep in mind that these are very limited data, and the data set in total is not sufficient for us to make a full picture or a full determination on what the long-term health impacts are to the community here. As a result, the expanded air monitoring program was developed. And as that information comes out, we'll be able to update the preliminary assessments that all 3 agencies have made on the health implications of these emissions. I want to indicate also that the expanded air monitoring program is one that will have to take place. It will not be shut down. It'll have to take place continually until we have really good data and can assure ourselves and the community that lives here that the exposures are at a level that no longer present a hazard. The last point I wanted to make is that it is a fair question for all of us to ask, was this incident foreseeable? And I think we're kidding ourselves if we don't think it was. You've made some comments about what had been disclosed about the maintenance of the wells. Any facility like this one has to begin their operation with what can go wrong in our facility and what measures do we have to have in place in order to mitigate those wrongs if in fact they occur. Monitoring for facilities like this are strictly needed throughout the state of California because we have to anticipate that no matter how unlikely an event like this is, when it occurs, we need real-time data, we need to be sampling for the right things, we need to be sampling over a duration that gives us data that we can use to compare to the standards. So that's what I'd leave you with in terms of a recommendation.
Thank you very much. Patrick Pope. Mr. Pope.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Pat Pope. I'm the Vice President of Porter Ranch Neighborhood Council. Last Friday, at the governor's meeting, Commissioner Picker was here, who was incredibly non-committal about the ratepayers paying for this. I know that PUC is a quasi-independent organization. I would really hope that Assemblyman Wilk's legislation and the order from the governor can put some pressure on the CPUC or perhaps legislate to them that the ratepayers don't pay for this. I hope that's the case. Secondly, in yesterday's Daily News, there was an article saying that apparently there was a real easy, not highly technical fix to this, and that would be to have brine water between the tube and the casing, and only to inject and withdraw gas from the tube. And should there be a break in the tube, the water could have stopped the leak. And of course, the casing would not have burst if gas was only going through the tube. So I think the gas company has rolled the dice a little bit, and we lost. And that's all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. I'm going to recognize Ms. Burke, who has a question on that.
Hello? All right, there we go. My name is Assemblymember Autumn Burke, and I am not from this community. I'm from the 62nd Assembly District. However, I too have a storage facility in my district. So this does affect us in my district as well. And I have two things to say. I actually have three. The first thing is that I am horrified by the comments that for some reason, because these storage facilities are necessary and threatening community members, that there would be rolling blackouts and things such as that, somehow mitigates the requirement for oversight or accountability. That's just something I have to say, because that is a real problem in the conversation here for me. You're welcome. The second thing is this statement of unreasonable costs passed on to the ratepayers is very vague, as this gentleman has just asked. And so I would like a little more specificity as what you mean by unreasonable costs. I'm not sure that this should fall on the burden of this neighborhood or any neighborhood that is impacted by these sort of circumstances.
Emergency order was very clear that it directed the California Public Utilities Commission to make sure that the costs associated with this leak, in the broad sense of that, are not passed on to the ratepayers. It is an order from the governor that the commission shall comply with, and unreasonable in this context means the cost associated with mitigating this leak would be unreasonable for the ratepayers to bear.
All right, and I appreciate you clarifying that, because I think everybody in this room wanted to hear a more clear understanding of what unreasonable cost meant. My last thing, oh, he's gone, that's perfect, I can keep talking. My last thing is the first gentleman who spoke requested some basic transparency from the gas company, and I am just curious, you never answered, Mr. Cho never answered the first speaker's request that his community has asked for some transparency, whether that is cameras on site, current information. And if you'd like to stand up, sir, you in the black vest that spoke first? You? Yeah, you. Hi. You spoke about some transparencies, and I'd like you to ask Mr. Cho that specific transparency question again, and I'd like an answer. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Cho. That question, yeah, let's hear your answer. We've asked the same questions over and over again. Please just.
I want to make sure I address the question. I think the question is asking about transparency in terms of.
Let me help.
Of what's going on.
Yeah, this gentleman had asked why the communities aren't being provided actual current transparency, whether that be cameras so that they have a constant understanding of where the leak is now, constant information, real-time information, because at this point this community deserves at least that, to know exactly what's happening every day so that they can make their families' decisions, their business decisions based on current, constant information.
Accurate, immediate, 24 hours a day.
There you go.
We need the data.
Thank you. So I think the first and most important information that people have asked about is the monitoring. And that has been very transparent from the time we started that. And I think that is something we've posted publicly on the web as we have that information.
Where can we find that? A lot of the information, it's supposedly out there, but it's just so hard to find.
I believe there are, first of all, alisoupdates.com is the link there. And then secondly, I believe if you go to the OES website, there's several links that are resources.
I'm sorry, what does OES stand for?
Office for Emergency Services, that's a state agency. And then I do believe AQMD also has some links as well. I will confirm that. I want to make sure that if I'm hearing it's not showing up on our website, I need to know that. So I will confirm that. Aliso updates, that's one word, .com.
And what I will do as a committee member is I will go to lisawebsiteupdates.com, and those of you who tweet or Facebook, we will follow up and make sure that information is available.
Thank you, Ms. Burke. I know we have two more, and we're going to do that, but at this other podium, if I could have Diane Siegel come, Wayne Spindler, and Brian Cafrio come over to this microphone. And then first of all, I want to thank you, Eric Nam and Pat Pope, for all your work on the Porter Ranch Town Council. And to answer your question, Mr. Pope, we are moving forward with legislation, SB 876, that will address making sure that you do not have to pay for the necessary costs of this. It is in the governor's executive order, but we're going to be codifying it through law. And then Mr. Cho, he had a question that no one has answered yet, which I think is a relevant one in terms of injecting and withdrawing. Allegedly, you're supposed to do it through the tube, and I guess there's a practice to do it outside the tube as well. And I wanted to know if this particular well was done outside the tube, and if so, how common of a practice is that?
For this specific well, I don't know. I believe it is a practice that is allowed in industry, but again, on this specific, if you would allow me, I will get back to you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, can you answer that?
Assemblyman Jason Marshall at the department. I believe our records indicate that the well was on injection through both tubing and casing at the time. It was stopped injection when the leak was noted. This is a practice that does happen through a number of wells in this field. It is part of the the review that we are going to be doing with our emergency regulations to find out just exactly how frequently this should be allowed, particularly in wells of this vintage.
Okay, next we have, it looks like, I'm going to say Kelly Hill. Did I get that right this time? All right, yep. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Kelly Hill. I'm not a public speaker, but I'm a homeowner. I have a gas shutoff in my house. It's a valve. Yet now we all know SoCal Gas is operating close to neighborhoods and schools. They have no way to stop leaks when they happen. How many experts have they called and brought in, and they still cannot stop this leak? They have no emergency plan. Why has this leak been allowed to happen? If they cannot, in an emergency, shut off gas, they should not be allowed to function as a facility. Why was I not told about this facility when we bought our home in 2007? Since this gas leak, I will never feel safe in my home again. I want to sell my home. Why is it reported in the newspapers that 5 years ago, SoCal Gas asked the CPUC for rate increases to fix the aging infrastructure? They took the money, but never made the repairs. Why? And one point I wanted to make, as a homeowner, I got notified of a letter that was dated October 26th or October 27th, and I received it in the regular US mail 1 week after the leak started. That's what I wanted to be sure and remember to say. It is obvious to all of us now, SoCal Gas is allowed to do whatever they want. They have now had a leak and have had 3,000 families have been chased from their homes. 2,000 still waiting for relocation. I have a home. I want to be in my home. If I can't go home, I want you, Mr. Cho, to buy my house for $850,000. I have lost the use of my home. My family and I have been in a hotel since November 22nd. Why is no one watching SoCal Gas? This incestuous relationship between the CPUC and Dogger and SoCal Gas must end. Now, shut down this decrepit, archaic facility so that all of us families in Porter Ranch can go back to our lives. Save Porter Ranch. Mr. Cho, I am tired of hearing you say you're sorry. You are destroying people's lives. Live with it.
Well, thank you very much, and I think it's really clear. We've heard from the public, and we heard from our federal representatives. I think it's really, really clear that what we need is legislation that would establish a streamlined cause of action to make sure that homeowners get compensated promptly for the reduction in their property values. That is very clear. Thank you. Susan Gorman Chang is next.
Hi, thank you for putting this board together. I just want to understand, I keep hearing how important this facility is to Southern California and to the whole West. Can you explain to me if some extreme accident had occurred, such as an earthquake, and Aliso Canyon was closed down today, wouldn't there be some sort of emergency plan in place to keep our lights on, to keep our heat on? Can you answer that, please? Isn't there an emergency plan? We're in an earthquake country. Can somebody please answer that?
I'll turn this over to the CPUC, gas company. I think it's a very valid question. You know, if there was some sort of catastrophic explosion or emergency,
yes.
What are the terrorism?
Like now?
That's right. What are the plans that are in place? What's the contingency plan?
I can answer that question, but I would like SoCal Gas to go first because it is their system and their plan.
Excuse me, aren't you the regulator in charge of making sure that we get our energy?
Absolutely.
I don't want to hear from SoCal Gas. I want to hear what the state regulator's plan is.
Okay, my apologies. I can go
Thank
first.
you.
SoCal Gas and other utilities submit their emergency response plans to the commission, and they include emergency preparation for catastrophic events such as earthquakes.
But how would we get our energy? That's my specific question.
Those plans assume curtailments.
Yes.
So if we had a major earthquake and SoCal Gas Aliso Canyon facility went out of service,
yes.
At this point, we would be shutting off gas to potentially heat homes and heat water, you know, depending on sort of how cold it was, but that is what would happen. What does not exist is a reliability plan for this facility. It is a very unusual, from an industry point of view, situation that you have facility that is as critical from a system point of view as Aliso Canyon. I'm by no means justifying the fact that that reliability plan did not exist. It is just a fact, and now we are finding ourselves having to do that analysis that should have been done as a contingency plan from a reliability point of view previously, but to my knowledge does not exist.
Let me understand this. So this facility is like the cornerstone of the energy plan, and there's no redundancy system at all, and there's no contingency plan if it were to go south.
To my knowledge, there is no contingency plan from a reliability points of view. So all the plans at this point that I have been aware of would assume curtailments under certain scenarios if that facility was out of service for a prolonged period of time.
Wow, that is unbelievable. Okay, so I also have something, this was in, I believe it's LA Times. California as a whole is oversupplied with electrical resources by more than 40%, according to California Independent System Operator. So also SoCal Gas has told us you really need us in the summer because we provide energy for your air conditioners. So can you comment on this, and can the California Independent System Operator help us out?
Yes, we are in contact with the California system operator, working with them very closely. If I may, I would summarize it that the gas system is a lot more difficult to sort of work around. It has physical properties that gas flows a certain way and you can't sort of move the molecules around fast enough. I think on the electric side we do have a lot more options just because of the properties of electricity. We have time, thankfully, from now until summer comes to work through all of the possible solutions with the CAISO and bring on additional resources, see what we can do from a configuration point of view and how the power plants work to mitigate any reliability issue. This analysis is ongoing. The entities involved, the CPUC, the California Energy Commission, and the CAISO are working very hard on that, and as soon as the analysis is complete, this information will be released.
So it sounds like if they shut down during the summer, we might be okay because we could get electrical from somewhere else?
We are working on all possible solutions to make sure that we would be okay. I can't at this point say what that solution is because the agencies in question haven't figured it out, but I can guarantee that we will look at absolutely every possible solution, and there are more options on the electric side than there are on gas.
Okay, so it sounds like there was more of a contingency plan for the electric side and absolutely no contingency plan for the pure gas side for our heating. Is that correct?
Yes, there are a lot of sort of rules around electric reliability and contingency planning of what sort of how electricity moves around. If a certain power plant goes out of service, the connection between the gas and electricity is somewhat unique to California because of how much gas we use, because of renewables and where they are, and that is, as an industry, a gap that analysis wasn't done previously for this Aliso Canyon facility to create that electric reliability plan for a loss of a storage facility. So, yes.
So, okay, so again, it sounds like we'll be okay in the summer, but you don't have a plan for the winter. Okay, so I'm looking at LADWP.
And ma'am, I'm sorry, we have a lot of people waiting. You've already asked 4 questions. We have a lot of people who have several questions as well. I'm sorry, if we have time, then we'll get to it, but thank you. All right, Diane Jones-Siegel.
Can you hear me okay? Sorry. My name is Diane Siegel, and I live, I think, about a mile away from the well on Beaufait Avenue. We need better information. We're in a city that has the best storytellers in the world, and the story we're getting is mud. We can go to the website, and we do appreciate there's a website, but if you go there and you want to see what the levels are of methane and all the other things that could be even more dangerous, it's incomprehensible to the layman. And I can't understand why, if in a city where we have incredible weather coverage that tells you whether to wear a jacket or not when you leave the house, can't we have some information for the people who are still living in the neighborhood? Maybe we're not smelling it every day, but we know that as we drive through different places that we need to get to, sometimes it's overpowering. And I would reroute myself. If I know that there's an incredible burst on Cessna, I'm not going to go that way. I'll go another way. So that small amount of help seems like a really easy thing to do. And I would call out to our media outlets. You're covering this story. You're getting a lot of mileage. A lot of eyes are on your stations when you cover Porter Ranch now. Can't you do something for us, like give us a weather type report? It seems like a simple thing to do, but that's only if we get, as was called for, immediate information, not stale information. The second thing I'd like to say is that we have gas lines throughout our whole neighborhood, and those have leaks. And with the increase pressure of things being taken out of the oil well, who's looking at those old pipelines that go right in front of my driveway and the increased methane leaks from them? I haven't heard a thing about that. And the last thing is, last Friday, I was ready to move because they were talking about explosions. So please deal with that, because I was really ready to pack my bags last Friday. Thanks.
Thank you for sharing. Coming over here to this next, and we'll start in a second, but coming over here to this next mic, Dr. Tom Williams, Glenn Bailey, and Richard, I believe it's Matthew, over here. And then, go ahead, Mr. Spindler.
Yes, so glad to see Mitchell Englander. He's been missing from the city council building for about a month now. I thought he retired, but there he is. How many city council meetings has he held regarding Porter Ranch at City Hall? None. How many has Mike Antonovich and the Board of Supervisors held? 3. So, now all of a sudden he wants to talk about it. But at City Hall on Monday, I was at a committee meeting. I wanted to speak about it. He throws me out of the meeting because I'm disrupting the meeting before I even say a word. Lousy. Lousy, lousy, lousy. Now, when you have a diminution in value to a house, you can get an award for the damages, for the loss of your equity, but it's taxable income. So the state law needs to be changed. If you receive an award for inverse condemnation involving the loss and diminution of value, that has to be free of taxes so that these people get all the money that they so justly deserve. Now, at my house, I'm over in Encino, I have an old meter, and they wanted to put one of those smart meters next to my bedroom where the meter is, with one of those wireless doo-doos, so I didn't want it. The PUC's response was, I have to pay a $75 penalty and $10 every month for the rest of my life on my bill, because I chose not to have that. That's the PUC. The People Who Don't Give a Crap Incorporated. That's the PUC. See, when you brought Boots and Coots, who is a subsidiary of Halliburton Incorporated, into that mountain to unblock that blockage, something happened. Something happened. You blew the damn well, didn't you? See, something happens, but you don't want to tell us the truth because you'd say you don't know. Sure you know. Tell us tonight. What happened? When did you break the casing on the well? And if the well can be shut down to stop the leak, why are we shutting the field down? Profit. Is profit over the lives of people and pets? No. Shut the damn thing down. You give them 2 days from tonight. If they don't have that thing shut down, the whole thing gets shut down. They lose their $4 billion. Don't worry about it, because Wall Street will take care of it. You'll file for bankruptcy when you reincorporate in Wilmington, Delaware. I know how the corporate game works. Many of us do. Like when we sue corporations in class action lawsuits, and they go bankrupt and give us $4.35 in our settlement after the attorney's fees and costs are eliminated. I don't want to see you guys do this. You give them their money, you buy their houses at full market value, tax-free, you give them all the money for their houses, and then when you have all of them bought, you decide to make it a park, you fix it, you let these people live their lives because they're good people and they're not responsible for your financial mistakes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Brian Caforia, and I live in Valencia. Thank you for conducting this hearing here today. Thank you for conducting this hearing here today in the community. I know that one of the frustrations that people have felt throughout this process is that the elected officials and other agencies are not listening to them about their needs and concerns, and conducting this hearing in this community is a good first start. Another concern that people in this community have is that the various officials and agencies are not cooperating effectively together to make sure that they are each handling their responsibilities correctly and efficiently. And for that, I applaud United States Senators Feinstein and Boxer for calling for increased engagement from the EPA, the Department of Transportation, and the Department of Justice to come into this and take a leading role. I hope that this committee and the other federal agencies and state agencies will all make their findings public and will state exactly what they have done and what they plan to do to make sure that they are working cooperatively and effectively to fix this problem. I'm glad the chair said today that he supported Congressman Sherman's proposal. Just a few weeks ago, the House of Representatives voted to limit people's ability to seek relief against corporations. And so it is more important than ever that the state take a leading role in ensuring that the people who have been harmed here, not just for home values, but for any harm that they suffered as a result of what SoCal Gas and Sempra Energy have done, are able to get relief for the harm. Thank you.
Okay. Good evening. Dr. Tom Williams from the Sierra Club Citizens Coalition for a Safe Community and past experience with the CPUC and Dogger. But anyway, 60 years ago, I drilled with a lot of other people my first well. So I've been around. I've also been as a consultant to the CPUC on the Montebello gas storage facility, and then the Playa del Rey gas storage facility. And last night, the Sierra Club Angeles chapter voted a resolution to shut down all urban gas storage facilities. Aliso Canyon, Montebello, Playa del Rey, maybe Honor Rancho, and put it someplace where you don't have direct risk. By the way, in Montebello, the gas company bought, I think it was 12 houses because too much gas was coming up in the house. So at least out here, you don't have the gas pool under Porter Ranch. So there's a major issue there. Then, this is a risky, dangerous facility. There is a requirement for spill contingency and control plans for all oil fields, but is this an oil field? Well, yes it is. There's one on top of the gas storage facility, as there is in Montebello, and as there was in Playa del Rey. We have the same problems. Old facilities without proper spill contingency control plans, which I've done for several other fields. But there's also a matter that in the EIR for the advanced compressor station in the Aliso Canyon, there was reference to, hey, having a coordinated emergency response plan coordinated with the local first responders. That's an idea. But so far, I've never heard of any such plans by gas company for this facility or the other facilities. And they're closing down the Montebello because it was leaking too much, but it's taken 15 years to get to where they're at right now. Then, information, important. What's the gas coming out of the well? Does anyone have an example? A sample was taken, 3 samples actually, by the Boots and Coots under the direction of the AQMD. However, they didn't tell us the time of day, what the wind conditions were, or the hour of the day. The hour of the day, the date. There's one set of 3 samples from a well that's been blowing out for almost 90 days. Does that tell me something? They don't want us to know what's coming out so that we could think about where it's going. There's a whole bunch of things that lack coordination between gas company, the local agencies, and the people. Thank you.
My name is Glenn Bailey. I'm president of the Northridge East Neighborhood Council.
And so my first comments will be in that capacity, and then I'll speak as an individual. First of all, I spoke at the the Air Quality Management District hearing a couple weeks ago, and I made the observation that as of that time, we, the neighborhood council, and we're one of the 6 surrounded in the areas. There's, of course, Porter Ranch, but doing a great job. But you also have Chatsworth Neighborhood Council, Northridge West, Northridge East, Granada Hills South, and Granada Hills North. And I reported at that hearing that we'd never been notified by the gas company, nor by any of the regulatory agencies, about the prospect of this impact. Sure, we can read about in the news, but I felt that since neighborhood councils are part of the city charter, we're part of city government, there should have been some official notification. So sadly, in those past 2 weeks since then, I still have not received any notification from any of the regulatory agencies or the gas company. So I think as you craft your legislation, I think that you should include notification with neighborhood councils that would be affected. It's part of the charter of the city of Los Angeles. And while I'm mentioning Northridge East, just for reference purposes, our northern boundary is Aliso Canyon on the east, just south of the 118 freeway, and we go west to Reseda Boulevard, and then we go south down to Noroff. We include the entire campus of California State University Northridge. The second comment that I wanted to make is it kind of seems like the Wild Wild West up here. You know, decades ago, there was a consensus that the fact that we used to dump our garbage in the local canyons in the city and around the city, including Griffith Park, was inappropriate to being next to and in the middle of residential areas in the city. And I would argue that the same thing is true of this sort of gas storage, gas mining, that sort of thing. And instead, since we have elected officials from both state and federal government, and now I'm wearing my personal hat because this is not an official position, but I think that you should look into the possibility of creating a state park, national park of the Santa Susana Mountains and get this area so that it's a good neighbor for all of the communities by making it a state or national park. Thank you.
Let's call up our next speakers. Arlene Matthew, Matt Pacuco, Dave Friedman, Adi Sarbaz, and Eloise Fernandez. Just go to whichever side is most convenient for you. Next up we have Richard Matthew.
Hi, I'm Richard Matthews. I'm candidate for state senate in Porter Ranch and in the surrounding communities. How is this? Okay. I'm Richard Matthews, candidate for state senate in Porter Ranch and in the surrounding communities. Thank you, Chairman Gatto, for coming here to listen to residents and to see what we are feeling. What we need from you is a bold plan to shut it all down. We've heard that we need to have the gas storage to provide for system reliability, to make up the difference between our peak usage and what we can pipe in from other states. In order to shut it down, we need to bring down our usage. We don't need to bring down the usage to zero to need zero storage. We just need to reduce our usage enough that the peak usage is less than what we are able to import. And the way we can reduce our gas usage is by vastly increasing the incentives for rooftop solar. One quarter of our natural gas here is going to electricity generation. And so just putting in the rooftop solar will greatly reduce our natural gas usage. But then in addition to that, for the first time, we should tie together the solar incentives with incentives to replace gas appliances with electric appliances. That'll reduce our gas usage. We won't need to have this dangerous storage facility so close to our homes. And this is affecting people not just in Porter Ranch. I've heard from many people who have been smelling this as far away as Woodland Hills, For many people who've been smelling this in Santa Clarita, it just depends on which direction the wind is blowing that day. And they're maybe not having it as bad as Porter Ranch people who smell it every day, but they are still getting it. And for our whole community, we need to shut it down. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next we have Arlene Matthew. Arlene Matthew.
Oh, my bad.
Okay.
Arlene Matthews, American Consumers Together. I was the Democratic nominee for Congress 1974 and for the Assembly a couple times. I no longer trust Southern California Gas Company because they have been untruthful with us from day one. I'm not going to go into all the sins of omission and the lies. I want to give you an idea for some legislation that can immediately be implemented. One, they removed the safety valves from all of the wells in this facility, saying that this well, it's called SS25, they said it was a leak. It's been a blowout, and they removed the safety valves because it was not a critical well. And the definition of critical well is a house has to be built within 300 feet. Apparently, they got some legislation at some time that they wanted. Well, the truth is no houses are ever built within 300 feet. So all of these wells were not critical, and none of them have safety valves. So you have to redefine what a critical well is, for one thing. But there are, please give me some other, a little additional time, because they tested 16 wells 2 weeks ago. Okay. Of the 16 wells, 15 are leaking, any one of which can be a blowout, as this one is. And thank you, Public Utilities Commission, for not letting them burn the gas that they wanted to burn, because there could be a massive explosion, uncontrolled, that would inundate all of us in this dry, drought area. It could cause forest fires. We could all be incinerated. Don't let them try to burn any of the gas, which may be being sent to Canada, because they 15% is wholesaled. And I don't know whether it's still going to Canada. I wish I had more time. There's much more to tell you and more legislation. But let us shut the whole facility down. They've had it 70 years, and it was only supposed to last 20.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Before we go any further, I just want to thank the Los Angeles Unified School District for letting us use this facility tonight. If we could give them a big round of applause, folks. Thank you very much. And ma'am, I know you talked about time, and you're always welcome to, and this goes for anybody, if your question did not get answered tonight, or if there's something else you want to comment on, we're here because we want to hear from you. So just shoot us an email, give us a call, whatever you're most comfortable with, and that goes for anybody that was not heard tonight.
I did this to 1,100 people
He's
Friday
a brave
night,
man, folks, brave
and
man.
I'm going to do it again. I'm going to give you my personal cell number. So if you have a question, comment, concern, or if you're working with Southern California Gas and you're not been satisfied with the results, I want you to call me. So the number is 661-713. I'll do it again. 661-713-4794. 661-713-4794. And I'd be happy to help.
And I've confirmed that Mr. Wilk has bought more minutes on his cell phone plan to deal with all the calls. I'm an email guy. If anyone wants to get a hold of me, I actually read all the emails that I get, and I respond back to them. It's assemblymember.gatto@assembly.ca.gov. Send me an email. And you can get that on my website, too. Okay, so next we have our next speaker. I'm going to call the next three up while he gets to the mic. Paul Hunt, Marco Antonio Maldonado, Christine Soderland, and Melanie DeMont. Please go to either microphone. It doesn't matter which, but just get up there expeditiously so we can go right to you. Yes, sir. You're next.
Hey, my name is Matt Pacuco. I'm president of the aforementioned group called Save Porter Ranch. First question I'd like to ask is, where'd everybody go? I thought they came here to hear us. Is there some important event we're missing that we should go to right now? Okay. So I think the residents here are really suffering from meeting burnout. There's been so many elected officials coming and doing a lot of talking, yet very little action and very little help to us. Yet we're 3 months into this. So we don't need any more talking, we need some action. And SoCal Gas, I don't think many people care to hear what you have to say, or rather what your lawyers are allowing you to say. And thank you, Mr. Gatto, for shutting up that SoCal Gas spokesperson. You can find out everything what he was about to say on the Save Porter Ranch YouTube page. He says it over and over again. And you, Mr. Gatto, are head of the committee that oversees this industry, and I'm sure you're going to be looking into a lot of new regulations. So let's talk about regulations. First of all, I'm sure there's, due to some regulations or lack thereof, that it took the state 3 months to get here and took Jerry Brown 75 days to get here. Let's talk about another regulation with Dogger. Can you take this up there? You can find this on the Dogger website. This is the last survey, temperature survey of SS25 well. This is done by SoCal Gas and submitted to Dogger, the regulating agency. You look on page 2, is zoomed in the bottom, where it shows the subsurface safety valve is actually, according to SoCal Gas report, is still there. And according to the regulators who look at these reports, is still there. SoCal Gas already told us they took that out in 1979. And there it is. There's our regulators at work. Dogger being up there 24/7 doesn't help. Their lax regulations and oversight help this happen. Their own report, summer of 2015, after hiding that report for a year, shows that 78% of wells that they permitted have all sorts of issues. They had to shut down 23 wells after this report. Some projects have no reviews on file. Some projects have not been reviewed in 20 years, et cetera, according to their report. That's our regulations at work. Some regulations better be enacted down the road, and that would be great, but what we need is something today. Regarding the Aliso Canyon facility, we're not going to regulate our way out of 40 years of lack of regulation, lack of maintenance, lack of comprehensive inspections, lack of inspections, according to Dogger's own report, sometimes zero government oversight at that facility. This particular facility needs to be decommissioned. SoCal Gas and CPU, the SoCal Gas filings with CPU that you already spoke about already pretty much prove that. SoCal Gas did nothing, CPUC did nothing, Dogger did nothing. That's our regulations at work. Now, CPUC, let's see. SoCal Gas has said many times they have done what's called a shut-in. SoCal Gas, they shut down their whole facility by themselves, up to 15 days at a time, they said at the AQMD hearing. So apparently that facility can be shut down. We want to use that shut-in, what they call it, as a model for how to shut it down. And ISO has also stated publicly that they can take any power plant offline anytime they have contingencies, but as you all just stated, there's no contingency for this place. But they've shut it down themselves. So speaking about things being in cahoots, like Mr. Wilk mentioned earlier, there's this AQMD hearing going on right now. AQMD and SoCal Gas together drafted the order for abatement. AQMD actually has little or no authority to regulate gas injection wells. So we believe that AQMD and SoCal Gas are looking to get around Dogger's order on December 10th to cease all regulations by cleverly writing that and then that order for abatement, and then, of course, they'll vote for the order for abatement rather than shut it down. Although AQMD, their one clear authority that they do have is to shut down facilities that violate their regulations.
And thank you, sir. We've got a long line of people waiting to talk. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name's Adi Sarbaz, and first of all, thank you, Mr. Gatto, for putting this together. My question is, prior to the October 22nd, 2015 leak, have there been any other leaks at the Aliso Canyon location? And if so, were these disclosed to the public in any way? And this is directed at the gas company.
Mr. Chairman, yes. I'm not aware of any leaks prior to the 23rd. If there were any maintenance types of activities, I would go look at the well files and I would report back to this committee, sir.
Well, let's clarify the question. Was the question about this specific well or about the Aliso Canyon?
Any wells?
Well, I mean, we know the answer to that. We have a filing from your company in 2014 that says that there was a leaking well, that says that the wells were leaking in 2008, that said that the wells were corroded. I mean, we know the answer to this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that's right. Yes, sir.
Paul Hunt, Porter Ranch. I think the problem is this communication that is just not going through, where people are asking questions and the gas company comes back with reasons why they cannot answer, such as it's proprietary trade secrets, which would be a secret sauce that has competition as opposed to a company that has no competition. Are you afraid somebody's going to steal your chemical of methane so you can't let that information out? Inside your well, you have old oil, which is mixing with methane. And some combination of that is coming out and it's creating what could be a poison. We would like to know what that is exactly, because you know what it is.
And this question refers to, I believe, what we've read about in the paper, and I'm curious about this too. This was I don't know if people would describe it as sandy slime that was coming out on some of the homes in the area after attempts to plug the well. So could we get an answer to that? Because I think a lot of people are curious. And there's the concern that there are hydrocarbons within that substance. That's right.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. The monitoring that is going on throughout not only the community, but just in many, many locations, is looking at not only for methane and some of the other constituents, but it's very comprehensive. It includes hydrocarbons. I think what is being referred to is that there have been some oily dots that have come off and landed on cars and on surface, and we're aware of that. We did sample that and test that, and we did actually bring that result to the Community Advisory Committee, I think two sessions ago, sir. But I think one takeaway for me is this, and I heard it earlier, we can do a better job of putting the data out there in a way that's understandable. And that's one takeaway for me tonight. I heard that earlier.
Thank you.
It doesn't seem that difficult to put it out to be understandable if you just put it out. I don't think it has been released. I don't think that information exists as to what is even in this well, because I was at the AQMD hearing and heard that it is proprietary, that you cannot release this information. And this is the problem, that there is a communication where information is not being made available to the public.
And I think another way of underscoring that is, I think most of us in this audience would appreciate that something might be a trade secret when it's in the ground, but when it's coming out and polluting a community, we want to know what's polluting this community.
As we would rotten food.
That's right. Thank you. Mr. Maldonado.
Marco Maldonado. Okay. Just real quick, I have 2 comments and 2 questions. So real quick, the health concerns, I heard yesterday Angelo Bolano, Deputy Director of Health, make a statement on the news conference saying that there's no long-term effects based on the data that they collected. So then I decided to actually contact the health department to see how they formulated this concept of no long-term health effect to the community. They told me that they grabbed 3 sources of data, and obviously they have their own resources, and they came up with that statement. Some of that data was collected from the SoCal Gas data, ARB data, and the AQMD data. So I decided to contact AQMD. I contacted, I believe it's Mohsen Nazimi and Rudy Eden, which they're both in the engineering compliance, deputy executive officer and senior enforcement, and asked them in terms of their plan of where they're collecting the data. They told me that they had a methodology, that they wanted to collect the data obviously near where the neighborhood was, in this case the schools, which is about approximately 2 miles away. Then I asked them, have you guys collected data off the well site? And they asked me, well, that's not our intent. Our intent is to actually look at the data that impacts the community. But then I asked them, common sense we want to know is what is actually coming out of this well site? He goes, well, that's still not our methodology, and we intend not to actually monitor the well site. But we have recorded data from well site. A gentleman earlier said that he has collected data from the wells, the AQMD collected data from the well site. That happened on December the 17th, got processed and posted on January the 15th. That data, both 2 samples were contradicting to each other because they mentioned that the data was sampled, there was wind shifting, et cetera. Well, we still want to know what's coming out of that well. I don't need the gas company to tell me what is coming out of the well. I need our governmental officials to collect as much data coming local to the well site so that we can know exactly what's in that mix. Now, I understand that the wind can actually shift it. Well, there's data that is being missed collecting from the well site. The other comment that I have to make is CPUC, Doggers, AQMD, I feel like they're letting us down. They should be more of a proactive role in jumping into this and getting as much information for the public as possible. Number 3, actually, this will be my questions. My question is to the gas company. Is there any plans for expansion of your facility?
Of the current Aliso Canyon facility? I'm not aware of any plans to expand at this time, sir.
Hello, can you, okay. Well, I'm just asking in general because I want to know if you have a future goal of making this facility even bigger. The person I should be asking is you.
And I'm not aware of any plans at this time to expand, I'm not aware of any plans, sir.
I have another question.
I'm sorry, we've got to limit folks to just one. We have a stack of people waiting to ask a question, sir.
The fracking was going on in your facility. The CPUC would know that fracking was going on in the facility. I wasn't aware officially that fracking was going on in the facility. How is the public going to know that there's fracking going on in the facility? And if there was fracking going on in the facility, how far did your horizontal lines go? Was it towards the community? Was it away from the community? How did it impact this well? Was that the cost of this rupture? Could that be a future cost of ruptures? So how is the CPUC going to regulate this fracking? How is the community local to this facility, which can actually operate these wells in any way that they want to, can continue to do maybe fracking? You don't know. I don't know. How will we know when another well ruptures?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Maldonado, and we're going to call up the next people, and then that's the question that I want answered very much too. So we're going to call up the next people just to make their way to the mic while our panel prepares to answer that. Melanie DeMont, Sandy Nyman, and Michael Herman. I'm just trying to keep us moving on time. Okay, so those folks can step up, and then we want an answer. We want an answer to the question about fracking. We have read in the paper that fracking occurred at this site. I believe it was 8 times, is that right? That's something like that, 7 times fracking. To talk to us about fracking. Yes.
There we go. Perfect. Mr. Chairman, the department has looked through its records and has found those instances of hydraulic fracturing that had occurred in the past. You will recall that hydraulic fracturing as a reportable activity it wasn't reportable until 2014. However, there are records that demonstrate that hydraulic fracturing has happened in this facility. We have done an evaluation of where that hydraulic fracturing took place, looking approximately 1,500 feet out from the well site out of an abundance of caution for how far a fracture would propagate, and none of the wells within that 1,500 feet were the subject of the hydraulic fracturing treatment. It's for that reason we think there's a very low probability that hydraulic fracturing has had anything to do with this. We won't know for certain until we get our investigation complete.
So let me summarize that answer in case you didn't hear. Fracking did occur. It was within 1,500 feet of this well. The speaker said that he does not believe there is a correlation, but I want to know, what I'd like to know is, we've read that hydraulic fracturing can cause vibrations, and in some instances it causes low-level earthquakes. How can we be sure that this did not damage the well casing or the very fragile small parts that were part of this well?
Again, we went through the records to identify the wells that were within 1,500 feet, which is, in our estimation of, in our hydraulic fracturing regulations, how far one needs to go to really think of, it's probably in excess of how far you need to look, but to identify whether any of those wells had been the subject of hydraulic fracturing. They were not. I'm reminded that we have also requested additional information from SoCal Gas to fill out the full analysis. It is something that will be part of our after-action investigation that our investigation team looks at.
Okay. Christine Soderlund, you are next.
I appreciate the fact that you're holding this meeting here for us. I really appreciate being able to come and speak to you guys. I think I've spoken quite a few times, but I do have the question. As a homeowner, I have to have pool gates, I have to have a water heater strap, I have to have a gas shutoff valve. Why am I more regulated than the gas facility? I also wonder that there's been so much misdirection, there's been so much lack of information, there's been false information that's come out over these 90 days that we've been experiencing these troubles. And I want to know, what will you do to prove that my house, my neighborhood, my child's elementary school is safe to move back into? Because right now you've lost all credibility with me, and I believe with our neighborhoods, and we don't trust you. How will you prove to us that it is safe and clean and we can come back and not deal with this again?
This is, I'm going to just pick this up so I can lean over. This is an awkward situation for the company that has had a long tradition of customer service. And the reason I've stayed with the company for so long and I actually came back to the company is because of the customers. And you're absolutely right. We need to rebuild that relationship and that faith and that trust. One thing that is in the governor's order, because that's really important, right? That's the accountability, is in the governor's order, there are definitely requirements to make sure that before we can inject again, there is independent review, there's an investigation, and that there is concurrence, not just by the agencies, but by your leaders. And because it's going to be a transparent process, it also can include all of you. It's going to be a process that will be public. And so my personal hope and trust is that we'll get there again, and that the outcome will be something that gives you that peace of mind. Thank you for bringing that up.
Okay, we have, is Melanie DeMont still here? Okay, Melanie DeMont.
Hello, I am here because I have a question I have not heard answered. I've heard it partially addressed. I did not do well in chemistry in school. And I have a master's degree, but it's not in that field. What I am concerned about is we keep hearing a lot about gas, the methane, and that it's probably more healthy to breathe that than it is normal air. It has no lasting effects that are negative. Also about the smell that is put into the gas. My concern is with those many other compounds that are coming out that are heavier than air, that are lighter than water, that are flowing down the streams downhill, that are pooling up, especially in the lower areas that do not have wind the way they do up in Porter Ranch. And I would like to hear some discussion of this, because I believe that this is where the health effects are going to lie, not with what's actually lighter than air and is mostly being blown away, and not with the smell of the gas. I think quite a bit of this is pooling at lower areas. It's flowing into down our streams, and it's lying in our neighborhoods. So that's
Okay, who wants to handle that question? Mr. Belomo? And again, Mr. Belomo is from the County Department of Public Health.
Thank you. Angelo Belomo, Deputy Director for Public Health. You're absolutely right. I think some of the short-term effects that have been demonstrated from exposure to the sulfurous compounds are of less concern to people than being exposed to some of these trace chemicals, which include toxic chemicals like benzene. So that's really the current focus of much of the monitoring that we're doing. And you have every reason to be concerned about that. I think that I want to make sure, you know, gentlemen before you had said that we used limited data and it may not have been the right data, but we're trying to strike a balance here of making sure that we don't hold everything until the complete book is written on all the data that's available. So what we do is we try to say, based on the limited data that we have, we don't find that the benzene levels are going to produce a long-term risk of illness. But it's, again, it's very limited data. If the trends hold the way they have been so far with the limited data, we'll all have good news in that regard. But we can't assume that that's going to happen. We have to be open as good scientists. We have to be open to new information coming our way, and we'll continually reassess. The chemicals that you reference, any chemicals that are of interest to you or to us, we're going to make sure they are included in the expanded monitoring plan that we're implementing now. Anything. There'll be no limits on that. If we need to look for other toxic chemicals because we learn they're part of this natural gas, we'll include monitoring for those until we're convinced they're not a problem.
I've got a follow-up question, and this is from one of my constituents who was there Friday night, and then the hearing got shut down, and she didn't get to ask the question. Regarding these trace elements, she was curious to know if these things can be absorbed by furniture, clothes, and other products, and if so, what is the shelf life of those compounds and chemicals?
Well, you know, if you think about dry cleaning, for example, and we're not talking about dry cleaning chemicals here, but there are some chemicals that can be absorbed on clothing. Not real large amounts. We've actually looked at this before, and we know that the levels are not significant. But in answer to your question, some chemicals do have the ability to adhere to clothing, for example, or curtains. We don't think that's the case with the chemicals we're looking at here, but you know, we could look into it a little bit more and get back to you with an answer.
Thank you
You're
very much.
welcome.
Okay, let's get the next round of people to come up to whatever microphone is closest to you. We have Sandy Nyman, we have Michael Herman, we have Jerry Siegel, Susan Edwards, Jason Hector, and Bill Bleiweiss. If you would just step up to and I'm sorry, Congressman Sherman has a question, comment.
Just a quick comment about the PUC's testimony. If I heard them correctly, they said that they want to make sure that unreasonable costs are not inappropriately passed through the ratepayers. And whether it takes legislation or just PUC action, I'm hoping that we establish the principle that not one penny of the cost to plug the leak or compensate the community is passed through to consumers. I don't know if that'll take legislation, but that has to be the rule. Second, I heard the PUC say that the drawdown would be to draw down what's in this well to 15 billion cubic feet of working gas. I would point out that the governor's order requires the maximum daily withdrawals of natural gas for use in storage elsewhere, and you ought to be reducing the pressure and pulling it down as the governor ordered, rather than saying, well, we want to keep some working gas in there for some rainy day, and so let's not withdraw the gas and hope it doesn't leak out.
Thank you very much, Congressman Sherman, and I think it's certainly the will of this committee that we get a rule in place as soon as possible for what you said in your first point. We do not want 1 penny of ratepayer money to be used to compensate for the costs that are involved with this accident. So, okay, Sandy Nyman.
Sandy Naiman. I've been a homeowner in Porter Ranch for 34 years. I've raised my family there. I, for one, we've been out of our house for over 2 months now. We do want to go home. We do not want our house bought out. We want the entire facility shut down, both my husband and I do. That's what we want. At this hearing, Mr. Cho from Southern California Gas said that they don't know how this happened or what caused it. A few days ago, SoCal Gas announced that the leak will be fixed by the end of February or before. If they don't know the cause, how do they know this? In addition, people are being told, both at the Resource Center and wherever they call, that they no longer may move to homes or apartments, only hotels. There are no hotels in the valley that have any rooms available in them. Thousands are still waiting to relocate. What is going to be done about this?
So that's our question. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I may address. I will definitely take back to my customer assistance folks your concerns about the availability of what you need to have as temporary relocation. One of the challenges we have had, quite honestly, is just finding units, finding space. So, and after this, I will be here. I'll be glad to meet with you and make sure that we look at what your needs are, and work with you.
The answer to my question. Okay, so I have been relocated for 2 months. That is not for me. That is for the thousands that don't have a place. So the implication is that this leak will be fixed by the end of February, so everybody will be able to move back. So that's why they are saying they won't allow anybody to have a lease for a house or an apartment. Will this be fixed by the end of February? And if you don't know the cause, how do you know that?
Absolute guarantee it'll be fixed?
The relief well is a completely different process than the leak that we will investigate and find out what happened. I will go back to my customer assistance team, and I thank you for clarifying that for me, and I will discuss that with him, and I will make sure that the Customer Resource Center is able to address that. Thank you.
And again, folks who are having any issues with relocation can send a card up, or if they know somebody who's having an issue with relocation, in the meantime, while we're all waiting for an answer, we will do our best to help with relocation at least. So next we have Mr. Michael Herman, Mr. Michael Herman.
Right here.
There you go.
Thank you, Chairman Gatto. My name is Michael J. Herman. I'm a proud and happy resident of the great city of Burbank, and my family and I are looking at moving to Granada Hills, which is why I'm here now. I have two rhetorical observations, and a question. So my question is, in the last few weeks, I've heard repeatedly in the media that the extent of exposure is much greater than originally and officially reported, and also that the original leak was exceedingly further back from when it was originally announced. So my question is, if that's the case, how do we know no, I'm sorry, I'm not going to abide by that yellow sticker, thank you. How do we know what the future footprint is? Right now, it's Porter Ranch, Granada Hills, Northridge, Chatsworth. What's the likelihood or possibility that the footprint extends to Calabasas, Simi Valley, Reseda, Glendale, Westwood Village? I mean, if we don't know what the extent is, how to fix it, when it's going to be fixed, how it's going to be fixed, how the hell do we know what the eventual impact is going to be? So that's my question. Now I have two rhetorical statements. One is, does anybody remember the Horizon gas explosion with a company called Aliso Gas that burned in the ocean for months and months and devastated the coastline of Florida for years? I'm just wondering, I mean, we live on the opposite coast. Does anybody have any memory of that? Because I remember friends of mine that were longtime residences of the coast of Florida that were immediately evacuated and never returned to their homes. And then my final rhetorical question is, if this is, as I was told by Mr. Gatto's assistant at the beginning of this meeting, the largest facility, storage facility of gas and fuel of its kind on the western United States or in America, what in the world would happen if a terrorist group decided, instead of flying a plane into a building or two buildings in New York or crashing them into other places, decided to take a jet plane full of fuel or a bomb or whatever the incendiary device is and blow up this facility? I mean, what kind of security is there around this? I'm literally afraid of not of what is, but of what could happen with this disaster. So those are my questions, my comments. I welcome your responses. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And just everybody, I want to introduce our timekeeper. This is Sue Cately. She's worked very hard over her career to find alternative energy sources. I mean, and I'm talking worked very, very hard. Yes, thank you. And by keeping us on time, it's just so we make sure that everybody has a chance to speak. I know lots of people want to speak. It's no offense meant to any individual speaker. So I know some of those questions you asked were rhetorical. Some of them we'll get to with an answer, I'm sure, at some point. Next, we're going to turn to Mr. Jerry Siegel. Mr. Siegel.
It's not so different from the last question, but a little bit more limited. Obviously, a mixture of methane and air is explosive. Normally, the reservoir contains highly concentrated methane and very little air. And I'm wondering, as the pressure goes down, because of the fractures that have been created and because the relief well itself might potentially inject air, is there any possibility of an explosion there, either underground or above ground?
A very important question. Possibility of explosion.
Thank you for asking that question and the way you described it as well. Ironically, what you've said is the safest environment actually is 100% methane. There's no air inside it to cause a problem. The field has working gas and cushion gas. So as long as there's positive pressure in the reservoir, there is no risk of air getting in. And I think this was the concern, could air go into the reservoir? And the answer is no, there is no risk of that. And I want to really differentiate between the word explosion and the word combustion. Right now, at the surface, there is no risk of explosion. I want to make that very, very clear for all of you. There is no risk of explosion as a result of what's happening with this leak.
That is good. That is good news, I think. All right, I'm going to call up the next round of speakers to make their way slowly to one of the podium lines. Suk Yoon, Michelle Morse, Jeannie Carey, and Naibar Constantian. And I believe you must be Susan Edwards, and you are next. Thank you.
Yes. I have two questions. The first question is, when we keep talking about the cost of all this not being passed on to the ratepayers, it's still going to be passed on to us because everything is funded by our tax dollars, correct? So Otherwise, where does the money come from?
So the question
there
was,
insurance
it's a very
policies
important
or-
one. The question was when Congressman Sherman, when this committee talks about making sure that costs are not passed on to the ratepayers, what does that mean? Because don't the ratepayers pay for everything? And the answer is no. Within a modern utility, there are shareholders and there are ratepayers. And the shareholders are investors, and they're people who put up capital for a piece of the utility and a piece of their returns. And then, of course, there's all of us. We are the ratepayers. We are the people who pay. And there are certain calculations that go into rates and certain calculations that go into which group has to pay for what. We are proposing, Congressman Sherman and I and this committee is proposing that ratepayer dollars cannot go to 1 cent of the cost to ameliorate this claim, that the costs have to be borne by the shareholders. By the shareholders. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, and my other question is, I live in Chatsworth, and we've been receiving very little information or no information, and we have been wanting to move out of our home, and I don't know where to go or who to talk to, or if homeowners in Chatsworth, right off Corbin and Devonshire, are being given the same facilities as people in Porter Ranch, or if we're felt not to be close enough. I have a husband who's functioning on 30% of his heart, and I just feel that it's not a good situation. I'm a nurse myself, and I would like to leave.
So good question. I mean, gas does not respect our neighborhood zones. Gas does not respect zip codes. What about people in Chatsworth who are very close to the site?
First, I think Chatsworth is represented at the Community Advisory Committee. I need to just reconfirm that. But secondly, more importantly, if you do not feel comfortable or you feel discomfort, let us know. And you can go to the website, and there's a way to let us know and to request assistance. It's alisoupdates.com. Thank you, and thank you for letting me know.
Okay, yes, sir. Please identify yourself. I'm not sure which of the next cards you are. And
I'm Bill Belaiwais.
Welcome, Bill.
Can everybody hear me all right?
We think so.
Congressman Sherman mentioned 1979, one safety valve was removed. I think he just said one. It's not a question to Congressman right now, but it made me think, well, if one, how many more? Why weren't they replaced? Was somebody trying to hide something? Was it an inconvenience, or was it just a matter of saving a few dollars? I know this meeting is going to have a positive effect in the future. How much, I'll never know. The time will tell, but I'm sure there's going to be some improvements made in the future that's going to help this from ever happening again. So there'll be regulations. But I have a suggestion. We can keep on going with more regulations, but we're missing something. First of all, isn't this something similar to what we had in the Gulf of Mexico with BBP? I have a rental property in Chatsworth. In one diagram, I'm in the affected area. In Chatsworth, right at the bottom of the hill where Rocketdyne was. I am not suffering from this, but I'm concerned, and I do feel very well threatened. Now, I have a suggestion about regulations. It's time that this country do something when it comes to corporate behavior and fines, especially since 2008 with banks. Multi-million-dollar fines. They don't care. In today's world, they deal in billions. It's just the cost of doing business. What we need to do, corporate officers should pay, and I mean criminally. People should start going to jail and quit hiding behind a damn corporate seal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir, your turn.
I think this microphone's working a little better. So
I think so too.
Came over here. Jason Hector, you get my card up there. I have a question. The gentleman already asked it, and we didn't get an answer about the wells that we're aware of that are currently leaking besides the obvious one, SS-25. Can I get an answer to that question, please? How many?
Mr. Chairman, right now, we don't believe that there are any wells leaking at that site. The wells that were referred to as leaking in the past were identified, I believe, on an AQMD survey in early December. By December 31st, we are advised, have been provided records that show that those wells were remediated and that those leaks were resolved by December 31st. Since then, we have been overseeing the company's daily visual inspections and weekly pressure inspections, both of which are aimed at identifying sources of leaks, but we don't believe that there are any right now. Other, again, as the questioner said, other than SS25.
That was, just to repeat that, because I think the answer was a little quiet. Last week at the hearing, we asked, or members of the public asked this precise question. For me, it was a little frustrating that there wasn't an answer available. It's very, very good that there's an answer available today. That is the one bright spot, I might say, that I've heard. Yeah, okay, Mr. Cho, go ahead. Sure.
I was asked at the Porter Ranch Community Advisory Committee about leaking wells, and so I did ask, what wells are these? And I believe what I was told is these are the wells that were found to be leaking with SAQMD's inspection. I want to be very clear. There are no wells leaking. These were minor surface things that we wouldn't even, things that are very, what we call fugitive emissions that were corrected. The wells themselves were not leaking. They were not leaking. We found 15 that the surface area, sensor lines, things like that. We went ahead and on the 31st, an inspection came back and they were all found to be tightened up. So I want to be very clear. The wells, these 15 or whatever number of wells that are coming out, because I need you to understand that these were from the 9th and 10th of December, and again, inspect on the 31st. Surface, not wells.
When I say wells, I'm speaking in a broad nature. I'm talking about the whole thing, everything.
Understood.
Okay, don't get technical on me. I'm talking about, not just wells. I'm talking about wellheads. I'm talking about valves. I'm talking about casings. I'm talking about the whole structure as a well. Okay, so when you say, my time, I had like 30 seconds. I'm sorry. Why are you taking my time away? No, I've only had 30 seconds up here. Come on. Okay, so 15, you identified 15 that have what? What's going on with those 15 wells?
At the surface piping, not at the wells or the wellhead,
Okay.
there were minor fugitive emissions, such as tightening a sensor line, things that you would not notice. But what we did do was we made with AQMD, we went around and we did a much more in-depth observation. But again, these are not the wellhead or the well casing, as you mentioned. These are not wells. At the facility, there are gathering lines that bring the gas in. So these are surface pipes.
Okay, so has that been confirmed by the regulators, the PUC or Dogger or Department of Conservation, or are we relying upon what they tell you only?
I'm sorry, were you referring to the verification of the South Coast Air Quality Management District's testing on the 31st? We have been provided with those records. Or were
some minor leaks, okay? I'd like you to quantify minor leaks, but I'd also like to know if there's a verification process that is in place where somebody is checking that what you're being told by the gas company is true regarding, as he says, tightening up those, that those have all been resolved. Those issues have all been resolved. Not just that they told you they've been resolved, but what is the verification process by the regulator?
The verification process was that South Coast Air Quality Management District identified the initial leaks using a type of sensing technology. They went back, used the same technology after the company did work, and did not find the leaks that had been noticed in the first place. That was the verification.
So there are currently 0 leaks right now, aside from the SS25. That's your statement?
At this point, we don't believe there are any leaks from the well heads. We are doing
I'm talking about anywhere on the whole facility, Aliso Canyon, the whole facility. This is an important question the community wants to know. Let's get a real answer here. We have to move back there and live in this community, and we want an answer.
So can we, I'd like an answer to this too. And I want to hear in the most basic possible terms. I think a lot of the technical terms are what frustrates people here because there's lots of us who don't know them. So of all the wells on this site, we have been told that there are no other leaks. Yes, no. And we're not going to play gotcha with you. We're not going to come back tomorrow and say there was a tiny little fissing whatever. I mean, we want to know, have the tests been done? Have inspectors come out and tested all of the other wells on this site? Yes, piping, pipes, hoses, elbows, right. So can we at least answer first the testing question? Has everything been tested?
Yes, the wells,
Okay.
the wells, and I need to be precise, Assemblyman, the wells are subjected to, and the areas around the wells, the collections, I'm really sorry about this microphone, but the collections points, those are all being examined visually on a daily basis, and we are overseeing that work. On a weekly basis, pressure tests are being done. We are accelerating the emergency regulations that will be in place. We are accelerating those with a direction to the company that we want their inspection protocol that will be effective in early February. We want that now so that we can have a complete look at all of those other components.
Okay.
I'm not trying to be,
I get it. No,
I want to be clear.
I appreciate your answer, and I know the community does too. Thank you. Okay, Michelle Morse.
Dance around the question.
Yes. My name is Michelle Morse. I am a homeowner in Granada Hills. I purchased my home in September 2011. When I came here, I was very healthy. And since I've been there, especially in 2014, I suffered headaches. I was experiencing chronic nosebleeds. To one point, in December of 2014, the paramedics were called because I was literally bleeding out of my nose nonstop. We couldn't get it stopped. The paramedics came to my house, and I went for testings in early part of 2015 to figure out what was going on. And the doctors asked me if I was exposed to something. Something was causing my headaches, my nosebleeds, and ear infections. I had lost most of my hearing in my right ear. I'm now at 10% here, and I'm at 40% in my left ear. I didn't have explanations for this. I was never notified when I was purchased my home in 2011. There was no notification by the bank that there was any such things of like fracking or any of that sort of thing going on. I didn't know about this. I live in Granada Hills, away from the facility. I'm on Balboa and Chatsworth, so you think that wouldn't be affected, but somehow I was affected. My son, who is attending CSUN, California State University, Northridge, has also experienced headaches. He's had series of headaches. Therefore, I have to believe that there was some level of leakage occurring from the facility long before we were notified of the big release, okay? So my question is, what is being done to help those citizens who live in the surrounding communities that have been affected physically in some way to relieve these symptoms that have occurred and seem to be continuing, ongoing?
I'm not a doctor. I want to just be very clear, and I don't want to pretend to be a doctor. I think it's important that that you work with your physicians and your medical professionals. I mean, I'm not sure what else to say.
I've never had headaches like this. I've never suffered nosebleeds. And when I had my ears tested, August, and then in October, the rate of deterioration accelerated. So therefore, I know I'm suffering from something, but I don't really know if it's related to this, but I have to assume since this situation occurred, and I often did smell methane when I was outside, I often did taste metallic taste in my mouth, which I have to believe comes from some sort of gas floating or in our area because it's we live in a windy alley.
Okay, I'm going to, while we're preparing an answer for that, I'm going to call up the next round of people so we can keep this moving expeditiously. Claudette Jotty, Charles Dirks, looks like Chris, Pablo Merced, Chris and Monina Gottmaton, Cindy Petrock, Song Chan. People are welcome to, wow, looks like that was a big round of people who've already left. Well, we're doing our best. Guillermo Laquona, Angel Maldonado, and Jennifer Milbauer. Yes, sir. And I apologize for the state of our microphones, everybody. They're frustrating us just as much.
Okay.
We can hear you now.
All right. Guillermo Lecuona, resident of Porter Ranch. First of all, thank you, Chair, for holding this hearing. I wanted to follow up on the question of the fracking. I think that the events that happened in the past are in the past. I believe that there's a possibility of fracking wastewater being stored nearby or at the Aliso Canyon facility. I think that needs to be investigated. I believe it's not just SoCal Gas, but also other agents as well, like Thermo and other gas companies that are conducting activities that may be harmful to the residents and the neighborhoods nearby Aliso Canyon. So I would suggest that we expand the investigation and make sure that there is no fracking wastewater being held at any of those facilities nearby. Also, on that same note, if there are any fracking wastewater facilities nearby Aliso Canyon, are any of those wastewater elements being taken out of the ground through this methane leak or any other methane leaks happening throughout the whole facility? And has anybody been testing for anything other than mercaptans and benzene and toluene? We need to be testing for radon. We need to be testing for hydrogen sulfide. We need to be testing at the wellhead. We need to be testing for a broad number of elements that could be present in fracking wastewater. Also, we need to request SoCal Gas to provide air purifiers to all schools within reach of the gas. This school right here has no air purifiers in any of their classrooms. We need one plug-in purifier unit in every classroom. Thank you.
Thank you. And so what I've heard and what we need remain to be answers are three questions in the recent past. The first one was from the lady who just spoke, and it had to do with health concerns. Now we realize people aren't doctors, but in the same token, these are experts, and you guys are all experts in your field, and you know if these symptoms match things that are described with the products that you sell and the different chemicals that you regulate. So we'd like to know if those symptoms are consistent with things that we should be concerned about. I think everybody's instinct is that the answer is yes. Secondly, the gentleman just asked the question about testing for radon. That is extremely important. We've all known that radon is a carcinogen for a long, long time, and we want to know that that is being tested for as well. And third, the other question I heard that has not yet been answered has to do with the storage of fracking water near this site. So I'd like to turn this over to the panel, and please, any one of you, feel free to jump in and answer any one of those 3 questions. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'll jump in on the fracking piece. We will be including the examination of whether fracking did take place, where it did take place, because I know that it did, and the attendant facilities, so any storage tanks or ponds, if they were using them. That will be part of our investigation into the root cause, if you will, of this.
And when will that investigation be concluded? When will I guess I'll just shout.
The investigation will start when we get the well controlled, because we do need to be able to get into the well and see what's actually happened to the well, to be able to then start wondering about what could have caused that kind of a damage. But it will start after that. I don't have an exact timeline for you right now for how long the investigation will take, but we need that answer. I believe it's actually part of the governor's ultimate executive order, is to be looking at all of these facilities and to be considering the results of these investigations.
And what about radon? Is anybody monitoring radon? Okay, good. So we've got a commitment there from LA Department of Public Health. Thank you very much. And the third question is these symptoms that people are reporting. That lady, I see her there in the middle. Yeah, there she is. Who talked about her symptoms, and I feel for you. Those symptoms, I mean, I could not imagine going through what you've gone through. Your symptoms are very much real. We want to know from the people who live with these chemicals all day, whose job it is to, are these symptoms consistent with exposure to any of the different carcinogenic substances that we've talked about tonight? Anybody? Okay.
For that.
Public Health Department.
Is this on?
Yeah.
My name's Katie Butler. I'm with the Health Department. So to help answer that question, it's possible, yes, that the symptoms she mentioned could be related. The symptoms that we're seeing a lot of are headaches and nausea, even nausea that can be severe enough that leads to vomiting, and eye, nose, throat irritation. Those are the most common things we're seeing. But it's a complex issue, and any kind of underlying health issues people are already experiencing, like asthma, other respiratory, even cardiovascular disease, could be further complicated by the exposure to the sulfur compounds. Now, these are symptoms that will go away as soon as you remove yourself from the area and you're no longer exposed to the odor.
Thank you. And I just want to, on behalf of this community, I want to thank our local health department, because you've given us some very forthright answers tonight, and we appreciate that. And folks, well, yeah, I have no reason to disbelieve what the health department is saying. Yeah. Right. Sure, yeah, no, I don't think that these, sure, okay, we're going to have Mr. Belomo come back from the County Health Department, and then we'll get right back to the questions.
Just to emphasize what Katie said, we're saying that if you're exposed to the odors and you remove yourself from the odors and the symptoms go away, that's a good indication that the odors are causing your headaches. That's all Katie meant to say there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, next, your turn, ma'am. Please identify yourself.
Hi, my name's Jennifer Milbauer. I live in Chatsworth, California, and thank you guys very much for holding this hearing. I know that you've heard from a lot of the community about how sick people have been, how much of an inconvenience it's been to be moved and displaced from their homes, and I want to make a point that it's been multiple times prior to right now that we've smelled this smell and have been lied to by the gas company, being told that it's routine maintenance of opening up the pipes and letting them air out every time we'd called to complain. But I think the message from our community is perfectly clear. We want this facility shut down. Now, you sat here and you just said to me you do not know the cause of the leak. Well, then I would purport that SS-25 is a crime scene. That broken casing is evidence. And if you pour cement down that relief well to plug up the leak, leak, you are entombing the evidence. And I'm here to demand that you remove the casing so that we can find out what we've been exposed to. There will be trace elements of whatever toxins have been spewed up out of that pipe, and I want that brought up. So tell me, are you going to burn the tapes like Belichick, or will you for once do the right thing and show us what we've been exposed to?
Thank you very much for your question. You're exactly correct that the physical evidence from the site absolutely must be collected. It is vitally important for everybody to know what happened. We're taking multiple steps to make sure that the evidence is not destroyed. The first pertains to records. We have directed SoCal Gas to keep all records related to Aliso Canyon, including emails, any shred of paper that's related to it. They're obligated to do that already, but we're re-emphasizing that. So if they don't, I mean, we're going to take every step possible to make sure that it happens and they're on notice. The same goes for the physical evidence. And not only are we monitoring very closely how the relief well efforts are going to make sure that at that very vital point when the well is being killed, that there is a time when you can get down into the well, that we can extract the casing to do analysis, and that is one of the reasons why we're also bringing an independent third party that has no connections to SoCal Gas to do the technical evaluation and provide a report that will be used by both Dogger and the CPUC and also available to the public, that we all have the technical analysis of that casing and anything else that's relevant to fully understand why that well failed.
Thank you very much. And Jennifer, I can tell you too that I sent a letter to the CPUC demanding that everything, every shred of paper, every email, every document related to this is preserved. They've issued that order, and we're very pleased with that. So
Thank you so
thank
much,
you.
sir. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Okay, next.
Hi, thank you for being here. My name is Angel Maldonado, resident Porter Ranch, and my husband and I moved there about 3 years ago, thinking it was like the perfect area for us to grow our family, and we poured a lot of money into this home to renovate it into our dream home. And you know, as you can see, I'm expecting, and we had difficulties trying to conceive. So when we did find out that we were expecting, you know, we were elated. And, you know, that joy has been robbed from us because we've relocated twice, once to a hotel and then again to an apartment. They had mentioned that this gas leak will be fixed by the end of February, which is, you know, earlier than they've expected. Well, I'm due in April, and I would love nothing more than to bring my baby home to the house that my husband and I created together for our family. And I just, I'm fearful to bring home my newborn baby, you know, when the time comes, when they say the coast is clear, you know, you can move back home. Well, I'm afraid, I'm worried, I'm stressed out. What if we're not ready to move back? That's my question. My only question is, what can be done?
Go
ahead. You have my commitment that I will do everything I can to get this thing stopped so you can go back home. I'm a parent as well, and I want you to have your child at home, start day one at home from the hospital. And I want you to feel that when you're at home day one, that you're safe and that it's healthy. And we're going to work with folks, with the county health and others, to make sure that people can feel safe going home. I know that. I've heard that as well. I've talked to my customer assistance folks, and that's, people need to have that. So Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I say, but if I'm not ready to go back home, what will SoCal Gas do for us?
I want people to go home. And so if you don't feel safe, if you feel there's an issue, let me know, let us know. But I want you to, again, as a parent, I want your child to be home, and I want you to be home. And the best way I can do that is to get this thing stopped sooner than later and to do it safely. So I thank you, and I've seen you at the other councils as well. I thank you for just letting me know about this.
Thank you. So I'm going to, so ma'am, yes, go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Cindy Petrak. I'm simply a run-of-the-mill citizen. I'm an expert on none of this. Hearing so many of you quoting numbers and facts, I personally find it emotionally paralyzing. I'm only here tonight because my 15-year-old son is scared. He's scared about the short and long-term effects of this, and I really don't know how to answer him. My 2 daughters are far away, out of state at college, and I am really grateful they're far away. Deep down, I think everyone here fears the unknowns about this. Risks, not risks, facts, not facts. It's all about the unknown. I'm a registered nurse and take care of critically ill premature babies. I go home after every single shift for 35 years now, hoping to God that I have diligently done the best that I can do. To those of you with responsibility in this, please know that every single day you are personally responsible for each of us. You are personally responsible to look us in the eyes, and you are responsible for us. When you go to bed at night, you need to wonder what will be said about you personally in 20 years from now. Now, here's my one question to you, because I've heard about long waiting lists. The woman who spoke and said that she wants to move out of the area, and you said, contact you and you'll help her out. What does that mean? Does that mean tomorrow you get her a place to live? There's a long waiting list. Or does that mean you give her a phone number and a place to put her name on a waiting list?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of the things that we have experienced through this whole process is every situation is unique. And so when I say, come speak with me, what I'm saying is let me understand what your situation is. I can't digest that in this forum. I want to hear what's going on, what can we do? That's what I'm getting at.
Okay, and I've been, the gentleman who just came behind me has informed us that we are going to lose our facility in a couple minutes. Again, I want to thank the LAUSD for giving us this facility. It was very hard to find one because a lot of the schools in Porter Ranch, of course, have been shuttered, and we did not feel it was safe to go there. But I want to thank LAUSD for being so indulgent with us tonight. I want to thank the cleaning crew who stayed so that, yeah, if we could give LAUSD a round of applause for letting us use this site. And we have Mark Harvey Ader. You have the distinction of being our last question. Mark Harvey Ader, going once, going twice. Mark Harvey Ader. Sir, are you Mr. Ader?
Excuse me. Yeah. I'm Harvey Mark Eder. And
okay. Harvey Mark Ader.
Yes, sir. I'm the director of the Public Solar Power Coalition. Been working in solar energy for over 40 years. First saw it in '68 in Israel on the roofs of my survivor relatives. And have been involved with regulatory agencies and whatnot in business and consulting on this, and told the board, the governing board of the Air District, close to 2 months ago, that we wouldn't have these natural gas leaks if we converted over to solar renewables. And we'd be involved with litigation with the Air District over their 2012 plan that it should be an immediate total solar conversion plan, and I've incorporated into the record that case, Eder versus South Coast Air Quality Management District, SC 1196-41, and there's also a case in the Ninth Circuit Court against Environmental Protection Agency. I've been involved with that, and that's number 14-7332, physicians against U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. There's been referrals to other things that have happened, like in the Gulf, the spill, and up in Exxon Valdez, where people went from the Gulf in 10 years, and 5 years ago, 20 years after the Gulf spill, and out of the 11,000 people that worked on the spill, 8,000 died from benzene and the other chemicals. What's happening here is an example of, with fossil fuels and the externalities, the cost. We don't need it. The price of oil now is $25 a barrel. The price of solar renewables has come down, and it's competing. And Bloomberg just put out a report a couple of days ago that there's been like over $500 billion spent last year in 15 on solar and wind, and less than $300 billion on fossil fuels. The jig's up. The investor-owned utilities realize that. The same storage facility can be used without the natural gas in it for compressed air. We've gone before Dogger and Department of Conservation. We're in the record saying that these facilities could be used for compressed solar. The storage is the issue, and there was been a meeting that's incorporated into the record in the card that I gave you of the Storage Society from 14. Staff's been attending from the Air District, and all of the presentations, and again last year in 15, as well as the PUC's hearings on this 2-3 years ago.
And sir, if I could ask you if you have a question to ask your question.
You shut off my mic. How come you're not doing this and just jacking around with fossil fuels? That we have climate change. We've been to Paris. We're looking at 2-3 degrees C. There's no way we're going to see this planet frying. We've got the humidity this summer from the warm air over the coast. My brother's a commercial fisherman. They didn't go out for a couple of months because the warm water caused acid in the crabs' stomachs, and the meat killed people. They had 27 inches of rain in December on the coast of Oregon. We're in a drought still. We're not getting any rain. And this is the reality, and we're twiddling. We've got a little indication here of what's happening, and something's got to be done, and fast. An immediate total solar conversion plan, and implemented through the rules and regulations and vis-a-vis the state. We had 3,500 through 3,900 of the Health and Safety Code passed in 2006, AB 32 under Schwarzenegger. We've had since 92, 40404.5, that the South Coast District shall use solar energy if it's cost effective, and it's just been signed on. It's the best available retrofit control and technology. The laws are there, and The fossil fuel industry is buying out the whole system. There's conflict of interest all down the way, from the governor and her sister being on the board of directors of the gas company and in charge of the environmental committee, taking a couple $100,000 a year, and the whole thing stinks. And we got to do something about it, and fast.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And I want to thank everybody who participated in this hearing tonight. Thank you very much. You know, sometimes it's hard for us who care about these issues to hold people's feet to the fire, but the public here has made it a lot easier to hold people's feet to the fire. We could not do this without the passion and intensity and dedication of all you people in this room, all the people watching online, all the people who've been participating in this since day one. Thank you so much. We are out here to get answers. We will continue to try to get those answers. Even if a question was asked that we don't feel we got an answer tonight, we will get an answer if it takes all year, all decade. We're going to try to find some answers, and I want to thank everybody tonight for coming out and participating, and particularly for your wonderful questions and your wonderful comments tonight. So thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned.